Okay, so this is us going over the Hillsdale College course, Introduction to Western Philosophy. We are on video 3. And this one's titled Plato, Philosophy and Liberal Education. With Nathan again. So here we go.
It's not as good as Buster.
I know. You do need Buster, don't we? Could get Buster to do that. Lecture 3.
In the last lecture, we were talking about Plato's Republic and the relationship between poetry and music education and philosophy. Notice we didn't even talk about philosophy in that last lecture. And it turns out that Plato doesn't introduce philosophy until Book 6 of Plato's Republic. He takes a long time to get there. And it's important to see how he gets there. So remember,
Plato's meant to be a philosopher, and he does 6 books before he mentions any philosophy. That's almost as if he isn't really a philosopher. Though people are just reading shit into it, if you want.
the argument from the first lecture was that philosophy depends upon this kind of education and poetry, this forming of the imagination and the emotions so that they're trained to help us see reality as it is. But the question is, who is doing the training? Who is providing the education to the young? That implies that you know the soul, that you know what the right stories are, what the right rhythm and harmony are to prepare that soul for knowing reality. And so that raises the practical question as they're constructing this city, who's going to rule it? Who knows enough to rule the city? And at that point, Socrates drops one of the most explosive philosophical bombs in the history of philosophy. He says philosophers need to rule the city when it's in its best condition. So he makes the claim for the philosopher king. Now, if
to get that, he makes the case for the philosopher king. I always like to relate these sort of things to personal experiences. And who's the ones that are teaching? Who's the ones that are learning? In this arena that we're all in. Does anybody ask themselves that? Like, what do you come here for? Do you come here to teach, or do you come here to learn? Or you like me? I like learning through teaching to learn. I think I learn off everybody that's around it, and all of the conversations that I have. They're all learning experiences for me. I don't know about that. Well, I do know about the teaching. You teach to learn. It is one of the best methods for learning. It's a Feynman thing. Through teaching, you can learn more. And through teaching the basics and going into the basics, you learn more from that. But this is something, I don't know whether everybody noticed this about Plato's Republic, or if anybody's ever read it or whatever. But yeah, in the story, Plato's the guy that's sort of laying it all out. He's the one in charge. He's the big governor. Because this is meant to be a story. He's laying out a story about the just, to show a city and how a city is built. So therefore Plato's the man that's making the city. Plato in this story becomes the governor, the big man. And I think, like he says, it's hard to tell the difference between Plato and Socrates whenever you're thinking about these stories. Plato's the guy that wrote the script for the plays or the dialogues or whatever, but you're talking about Socrates within the book. It's hard to separate the two sometimes.
If you know the story about what Socrates has said prior to this point, it's even more remarkable the way his interlocutors guffaw at this. They're willing to swallow so much about this city that's a little bit absurd, but that is one thing where they stop him and say, you've got to give a defense of this, because they have a view of what philosophy is. And that view looks like itinerant, poor, shoddily dressed people walking through the streets of Athens, trying to make money by giving accounts of reality and arguing with each other, and frankly not being all that useful. So,
do you hear that? Did you hear that?
Yeah, he's talking about so-called professional philosophers. So
Yeah.
just like lawyers or doctors or whatever.
Well, do
This
you
is
think
just
so? I think when he's
profession.
not talking about that, I think he's talking about these chat rooms where people discuss these shapes, right? The what's more fundamental than shape? The utter essence of being and all of that. They get nowhere. That's their idea of philosophy, I think. I think that's what he's talking about. This, I don't know, circular argument with sophists versus philosophers, and they're discussing things. And no, the common man can't get in, doesn't get a word in because it's philosopher stuff.
And who is philosopher and who is sophist?
Yeah.
Sophist will say that he is philosopher. So, and supposedly he should rule because maybe he is better sophist. So, yes, this is danger.
Yeah, it's a good job he's basing it on Socrates and not Zeno, isn't it? Plato
Yes,
did this with anybody else, would end up with a completely different story.
Yes, and remember, they are to rule, so to make decisions, not only just to make conversations. They have to make decisions for a state.
Well, I think
these philosophers.
Yeah, you've got to put it as though it's yeah, because you can put it as though it is who's going to govern the city, but he's not doing that. He's doing a quest for the just, and he's using a city, but using a city as in, I think the mind of a person to show how many different faculties there are within it. And he's sort of saying that you are the philosopher. This is your mind. It's up to you to build this. You're the one that's building the city. If you build it badly, like miss waste management or supplies or whatever, then you're going to be left. I don't know. Where it would leave you if you don't. But I mean, it's not an instruction booklet, is it? It's I think it's a call for people to get themselves in order. Me, but it's hard to tell what I think Plato's trying to get in this. Philosopher king, though, can you imagine? The person that
There-
thinks the most.
There was one in history, Marcus Aurelius. He was a Caesar philosopher, but he was not the best, I would say.
I'd say you've got too much on your mind to be ruling. If you're just thinking.
Ruling is practical. Philosophy deals with practical things also, but from a speculative perspective, let's say. But I would say that king or ruler should have in his council philosophers, yes, but to the state or everything regime ruled by a philosopher itself, it's beside this Marcus Aurelius, I would say it never happened in history. So, and this Aurelius was not the best ruler. He wrote many things, philosophical things, but as a ruler, he didn't make many good practical decisions. So I don't know.
Anyone else got anything? Are you all right if we carry on? Gee.
Socrates says, I need to tell you what philosophy really is. And he does it through two images that I want to highlight in this lecture. And they are two extraordinary images, and we will hardly even begin to scratch the surface of them, but they show us why poetry is not only useful at the beginning for shaping the soul to prepare us to see, but that images can actually enrich our perception of reality. Fostering a good image can do something that mere description or mere argument can't do. So we're going to look at the image of the divided line and the image of the allegory of the cave. First of all, before we get to the divided line, let's just back up a little bit. Who is the philosopher? Socrates gives us an example. He says, well, look around you. You see people who love beautiful things. Maybe you're one of them. You like to look at beautiful things. You love to see a sunset. You love to go to an art museum and look at different kinds of works of art. You love the shapes and colors of things. We're all lovers of beautiful things. Socrates says, okay, so let's say you're the kind of person who likes to go to art museums to look at beautiful paintings. So you look at the first painting and you think, that's beautiful. And then you go to the next painting and you think, that's beautiful. And then you go to a third painting and say, that's beautiful too. All the paintings are different, but they all seem to share this thing in common, which you're calling beautiful. Socrates says, what is that thing? What is the thing that makes painting A, painting B, and painting C all beautiful? There must be some form of beauty which is in all three of those paintings, but somehow it must transcend those three paintings. No one of those paintings can exhaust it. The philosopher, Socrates tells us, is not just interested in seeing the many beautiful things, beautiful painting 1, beautiful painting 2, beautiful painting 3. He wants to see beauty itself, the beauty that unifies your experience of beauty in each of those paintings. He wants to see the form of beauty. Now, Plato is known for his theory of the forms, as was Socrates to some degree. So I want you to think about this a little bit because it's basic to philosophy. Form has to be what makes all of reality intelligible. Whoa, what do you mean? Form is what makes two things look or seem similar to one another. Imagine if everything in the universe was radically different than any other thing. How would you ever understand anything? think about it this way. You're probably sitting in a chair right now. You're sitting in a very particular chair, but notice that you call it a chair. It fits into a classification of kinds of
Sofa.
things we call chairs. It has a form. The chair is not the desk. The chair is not the wall. The chair is not the carpeting. The chair is the chair. And every particular thing that you identify fits into a form, a class of things that makes it intelligible, that allows you to understand it. So Socrates argues that philosophers love the forms. And the forms are not just what make things intelligible. The forms are what make things real, what makes them last. Go back to the museum. Let's say that, God forbid, someone destroys paintings A, B, and C. Would they destroy beauty itself? Would beauty no longer exist if all the paintings in the museum were destroyed? None of us think that. Beauty somehow is more permanent, more lasting, more unchanging than the particular beautiful things. And the philosopher has a desire in his soul. Socrates calls that desire eros. We use that word erotic, eros, and we maybe use it a little bit differently. We translate it as love, eros. He describes it as a passionate desire for union with forms. It's different than how we use it today. Don't Google erotic and look it up, or make sure you have your filter on. But that's not what Plato has in mind, or Socrates has in mind when he uses erotic desire. That's the ground of philosophy. In fact, I think it's fair to call philosophy as Socrates understands it, or Plato. I have a hard time distinguishing between them. Socrates describes philosophy really as eros sophi. It's a passionate love for wisdom, not just a friendship for wisdom. There is one more
There you go. You need to have a chat about that. So there's an example here already of the change of use of words from then to now. And that is a perverted change of the use of the words compared to what Socrates was using, Plato was using.
I would say that this is narrowed because this erotic, yes, this is what it means now also, but back in the day, in Socrates' times, it was just meaning for love, yes. So and generally, even more broad meaning is linked to will, to want, just to want. So love, even erotic or not erotic or anything, this is what you want. Or he's using word desire.
Yeah,
Just
but a desire
wanting.
of the forms, right? Not a particular human form, right? It was the
Yes,
forms.
any form.
Yeah.
Form, yes, because he was talking about form, because, yeah, and Aristotle's, of course, is going along with that. We understand things through forms.
I think it's the symmetry within the form. I think that's what our brains see as beauty, non-chaos.
Yes, but he is talking about form in also broad sense. So he's not talking about shapes, physical shapes only. Yes, they are like triangles, squares, etc.
Well, what doesn't it have to be physical to have a shape though? I don't understand.
Yes, this
Has
is
to be
one
real.
one meaning, and the second meaning is analogical meaning. So and philosophers, especially Plato and Aristotle, were talking about forms in general. It means it is also referring to not physical. For example, a chair has physical shape, and this shape of the chair is making this chair recognizable for us as a chair. We can recognize chair as a chair because it has physical shape of the chair. The same wood, piece of wood or metal or whatever, if it were in different shape, we would not name it chair. So the form, shape of this wood or metal or whatever determines what it is, not matter, not material from which this chair is made. It doesn't define chair as a chair, material,
Form.
only form.
Right.
And
And
the same
within Plato as well, Platonic stuff, they have all of the forms are there, but the perfect form is the one that can't be achieved, right? The perfect triangle, the perfect square, the perfect chair, even.
yes, that would be representations,
Yeah, you're
physical
still trying to
representations.
strive for the perfect, but you can never get to the perfect in Platonism.
Yes, yes, but the shapes. For example, in ancient philosophy, the soul of human soul is form for and body is matter. So this is composition from form and matter. So matter is body, flesh and bones, and the form, what makes human, that is human, this is his soul, reasonable soul. So it is his form. And this meaning of form is not, of course, physical, because soul is not physical. But still, they named it form. So this is analogical sense. This is in response to John.
Right, was that in like the Platonism, or was that wrote into Plato's dialogues?
I don't know, but this is the point where where Plato and Aristotle agreed that so they have both this formal material, let's say, logic for philosophy. So the entity is divided into form and matter. So they both agreed on that. So like this chair, matter, this is wood, and form, physical shape. And for example, for human or for animal, animal's body, like dog's body, this is matter of which is made, but what forms it and why animal becomes animal as animal, this is his soul, because animal without soul is not animal, because property of animal is like as the name is telling us, anima, it is that this is vivid, has to be vivid. So anima, so soul, is something that is giving it life to this body, and this is form, because it creates animal as animal, living entity.
Yeah, I think we have to be careful at the minute, because we're talking about a Plato script, a dialogue, or whatever, but there's a chance that you can mistake Plato with Platonism, and the philosophy that came afterwards, and He did say yesterday, didn't he, that Plato wouldn't be a Platonist, or
Yes,
he
I
isn't.
agree.
Yeah.
I'm just referring to form because Aristotle was just after Plato, so he was referring many times to Plato because basically he opposed Plato in many points, but in that point, just formal matter, let's say logic, is pretty much the same. They they don't differ so much in that case. So just explaining what meant then for them matter and form.
Yeah, they had a completely different sense of the word. If you can have erotic, meaning the love of the form, and nowadays that's been turned into the love of the human form. I guess you could say,
Yes, but
or
love
perversion of
for
the.
it is that form itself is compelling. So this is beauty
Yeah,
that you can see the form of something and it is compelling. So it compels you and you want it, you desire it
I
to
think
see or
that
to
is a human
contemplate.
condition, isn't it? Everybody has that,
Yep,
whether it's
yep,
cars or boats or trains or
yes,
flowers. I
yes,
don't know. I'm
yes.
not very good at women stuff. Whatever it is that somebody always wants something, don't they? They have a like of the form of the thing.
Yes, but in that case, if you were talking about, for example, like man to women, this is more into that because man is not interested only in physical shape of woman, but her personality, psyche, and so on. So whole human being, not just only physical shape. But so this is more complicated. But still, um, we are talking about form of physical body and form of personality. So we can distinct between personalities, and for example, that man can like, uh, let's say, given woman's shape, physical shape, but for example, her personality would be so reluctant for him that he would not go to there, let's say.
Yeah,
So this is more complicated.
yeah, yeah. So the forms, um, eh, they go beyond the physical into the I don't know what's he call it. It's on the thing, isn't it? It goes into the intelligible realm.
Yes,
Yeah,
intelligible, it means this is word, Latin word, it is just understandable. Understandable. Intelligible means understandable.
yeah. Part of the brain process, right? It doesn't just get there. There has to be something that the processed within the mind to get to that.
Yes, and you have to be able to understand. He's talking about things that can be understood, because there are some things that cannot be understood. This is class of things that we cannot understand, and there is class of things that we are able to understand, and these things are called intelligible, that we can. It doesn't mean necessarily that we will. One will and another will not. But this is in our ability to understand that. It doesn't refer to a particular person, but in general, for human mind, it can be understood by human mind.
Okay, we're ready to go on.
thing you need to understand about form before we move to the divided line. Notice that when you're in the art museum looking at your beautiful painting, you are there with your eyes and your body, and the painting is there. But in order for you to see that painting, you need a third thing: light. We can't see anything without light. And Socrates argues that the ruling sort of source of light in the ancient world is the sun. And that makes a lot of sense because this is before Thomas Edison. The sun rules the visible world in terms of giving light and connecting our eyes to visible things. But then what allows us to see the form of beauty? We have to have an intellect, and we have to have the form. Something has to unite those. And this is what Socrates calls the idea of the good, the source of light in the intelligible world. Now we're in a position to understand Socrates' first image, the image of the divided line. So in Book 6, Socrates tells...
I think he cues that up pretty well. I like the way he did that.
Yes, light. Yes, and maybe he will go, and maybe he went to already to inner light, and let's say Saint John in his gospel, he is talking about this light, that there is light which is enlightening us from our birth. So he's talking about inner light,
Yeah.
which can shed a light to distinct between good and not good.
An inner light. I like the idea of that. Because the way it's wrote in the divided line, it has the sun at the bottom, and it would have been better to be the light, I guess. Also, it means that really the bottom ones, the images, need light in order for you to, I guess, know the image, right? You can't get an image without light.
Of course, yes. You cannot see.
Yeah.
And even if you are looking at the shadow, you need light to have shadow. Without light, you have no shadow. So even if you are looking at bad, let's say, things like shadow, not a thing, but effect of the thing, you have to have light for that.
Yeah. Yeah. Image in shadow. Similar thing. With respect to this, anyway.
his interlocutors this. He says, then take a line cut in two unequal segments, one for the class that is seen and the other for the class that is intellected, and to go on and cut each segment in the same ratio. Now, in terms of relative clarity and obscurity, you'll have one segment of the visible part for images. I mean by images first shadows, then appearances produced in water, and in all close-grained, smooth, bright things and everything of the sort you understand. Then, in the other segment, put that of which this first is the likeness, the animals around us and everything that grows, and the whole class of artifacts. Okay, why does Socrates give us an image of a divided line? Why does he divide it up this way to help us see what he's saying about philosophy? So notice the divided line has these four sections, and what I want to do is try to illustrate for you what Socrates is doing with these four sections of the divided line. Imagine that I draw an object for you.
Right. This, please pay attention to this. I've been trying to go over these simple, basic facts for quite a long time. And it seems as though people haven't quite grasped the simplicity within this, but this guy goes over it really well. I'll just
is doing with these 4 sections of the divided line. Imagine that I draw an object for you. If I ask you what this is, I hope that all of you will say, it is a triangle. You recognize it immediately. Now I want you to imagine for a moment that I'm holding a mirror in my hand. And I hold the mirror up against this triangle, and I ask you to look into the mirror, and I say, what are you seeing in this mirror? You might respond, I hope, I see a triangle in that mirror. Very good. Now my question for you is, which is more real? The image of the triangle in the mirror or the image of the triangle that I've written on this chalkboard? All of you, I think, would say the image in the mirror is less real than the image it's reflecting. The mirror is less real. Wow.
Do you get that? Does anybody want to disagree with him?
No, I probably would have came to the same conclusion because he physically drew the triangle on the blackboard. So,
Yeah, but it's still a represent. It's still.
I
Mm,
agree with you.
I consider it the same thing personally.
Triangle is a triangle.
He could walk away with that triangle.
I would say, Emma, did you say that that they are the same?
They are the same. They're both triangles. Absolutely.
I would agree, because this is like a copy, perfect copy. So image of the image, and because we are seeing images in our eyes, and the mirror is just like additional eye. So we are looking at the same thing from different angle, but still this is the same. And I would say even that this is not a different triangle. We are just seeing the same triangle, not only just triangle in the mirror. We can see the same triangle.
So you're seeing the same triangle in 2 places at the same time.
From different angle. And let's say image, not same, not triangle itself, but image.
Okay.
And this image is not different from original. So that's why I call it copy, perfect copy.
Yeah, I think this is one of the most poignant points within all of this. The image. Like, what is the image? It's as far as this is concerned, it's very limited, the image. It has very little power within any of this. We're talking about philosophy here. So the image is literally, it is just that. There's nothing to philosophize about an image, because you're into the deeper meanings of things, metaphysics. So yeah, would be with Emma on this one. It's providing you can see that image in the mirror. It's the same thing. There is no difference between the two. It is a reflection of the other thing, the same thing.
But if you look at yourself in the mirror, isn't it reversed?
Still me.
Yes.
I'm just bringing up a point. That's all.
Yeah.
That's all.
I know. See, he said he
But
automatically
he's
said
putting,
that. He's already gone that way, hasn't he?
But he's putting a picture, an image of a triangle in front of a mirror.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't tell any directional change on that image.
No, but what I'm saying, that's different to you standing in front of a mirror.
I know the triangle's pretty to look at.
It's not the object looking at it itself, is it? It's not the triangle looking at a triangle.
No,
Trying to judge it if it's a triangle.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah. But yeah,
Triangles
say
cannot
like
look.
he can have his point of view, and he could say that most of you would agree that that's a different one. But I don't know. People are entitled to their own whatever in thoughts, but the discussion's the good thing to come out of it.
I can certainly understand what you guys are saying without question. Yeah.
Okay, let's carry on. It gets better.
Wow, that's kind of explosive. And I just want to pause there for a moment and remind you that in this image, then, there can be degrees of reality. Things can be more or less real. The mirror moves away, the image is gone, it can be other things. The triangle on the chalkboard is more stable, it's more real, it's more visible. Now let's say I erase this triangle. Have triangles disappeared from reality? No. This one triangle does not constitute all triangles. Now, what are some things I know about this triangle? Let's say that I say all of reality must be tangible reality, visible reality. That's an opinion we sometimes hear, that all we can know are the things that our senses can perceive. But here's the thing. There's something we know about a triangle besides the fact that it has 3 angles. We know, for example, that the internal angles of a triangle add up to 180 degrees. Okay?
Well, I bet.
How do we know that?
Bev loved that, huh?
Well,
Oh, you wait.
That make you feel good, Bev?
You wait till you hear what he's about to tell you. And like I've been saying, trying to let people into for a long, long time, is this. Oh, God.
internal angles of a triangle add up to 180 degrees. Okay? How do we know that? Well, if you're one of my kids who hates
How do we know that?
math, you get out some kind of ruler or a protractor, and you lay it down and you start trying to see how many degrees inside my triangle, see if that's really true. Is that how we know the interior angles of a triangle add up to 180 degrees? Do we know because we measured them? So first we go to this triangle, then we draw another triangle, then we draw a third triangle, we just keep measuring them. But what happens when we
You've not measured all triangles, has he?
Yes, but I think he is saying wise things, because I would say that he's going to say that no, this is not
Yeah.
how we know that they sum to 180 degree by measuring
Yeah.
with protractor every single triangle. This is not the way how we know that triangle
It
has.
is the way that a certain group of people want you to think that that's how
Yes,
you
yes.
measure triangles, right? They want
Yes,
you to
but-
actually think that you can measure more angles, right?
Yes.
And then you can't prove that they don't, because you've not measured all triangles to know that all triangles have 180. But again, this
But
guy,
philosopher is not doing
exactly.
this way.
encounter.
okay, exactly. Listen,
So first we go to this triangle, then we draw another triangle, then we draw a third triangle. We just keep measuring them. But what happens when we encounter a triangle whose angles don't have to add up to 180 degrees? So we only kind of know. Okay. I hope I'm making my point here that we don't know this truth about the triangle by measuring the sensible reality of triangles. In fact, I don't know that you could ever get a perfect measurement of a visible triangle to show that the angles add up to 180 degrees. The way we know it is through a proof. Euclid is one of the great ancient thinkers who shows us the properties of geometric arguments by giving us proofs. It is a remarkable thing to see how you can do a proof that is not a matter of measuring some visible reality, but seeing a necessary logical connection between a set of propositions and a conclusion, and the imagination and creativity that goes into discovering that proof. But then what it turns out is that what you know of a triangle is not the visible triangle. Every visible triangle in the world could disappear, and you would still know that a triangle exists and has necessary and certain properties that could never be proved in the visible world. As soon as you go to prove the properties of a triangle, you are launched from the visible world to the invisible world. And that also is a kind of stunning reality. But then
Okay. What do you think of that?
Yes, he's talking about knowledge, which is intellectual part of our life, and intellectual is not physical.
Uh-huh.
So,
And
that's
until
it.
you have that proof for yourself, you're never going to know what that argument feels like.
Yes, of course.
That you know that you cannot prove a triangle has 180 degrees to anyone. They have to prove it to themselves. And if they're not willing to go through the proof, what is the use of you arguing with that person? If they've got a load of numbers in front of them that says, look, these add up to more than 180 degrees. How do you impart the proof and the knowledge that you've gained onto that person that's just willing to count up numbers and say, look, no, I can count this up, it gets more.
I would say that he was talking about this intelligible or understandable things. So proof is something that you can understand, you can produce it, you can make an argument and give proof, but this is rather matter of this proof being accepted or rejected by other person. But I would say that this argument would be understood by your opponent,
Yeah,
but
I
he
think
is not
so.
willing to accept it. So he is opposing, his will is opposing to just an acknowledged thing. So this is, I would say that that would be a kind of pervert thinking, rejecting just received truth.
But what about then if somebody weren't willing to listen even? Then what do you do then?
I would say that he, if he is not listening really, it means that he from beginning is not willing to accept anything. But if he is listening, but he is saying that he rejected that because he pretends that he was not listening, so this is just dishonesty. But he is also then dishonest to himself. Or
What would
he's
you
trying.
say in an entire community of people that were initially discussing shape, the prime matter of argumentation or discussion was about shape? What about if you went to those people and they were unwilling to discover a truth about the basics of shape, line, form? They were completely just not willing to discuss any of these basic fundamentals within this just thought process, really, isn't it? To be able to be took through those Euclidean propositions and see
Yes.
the proofs within it. That's very basic. It should be childlike sort of stuff.
There is name for that, mythology.
Yeah, mythologists. Yeah, I think there may be just a massive group of, I have to call them hypocrites, that claim that they want you to provide them proof. I've been over there. I've listened to McToon and Bob the science guy, saying that they want the proof for the realizing Euclid test. And obviously we can give it. We can give the proof and take them through it. But I know for a fact that no one wants to listen to it, which I think is very strange. And it goes to the heart of this. He's talking about people that want to measure to prove. And then when they know that they can't do that, they'll ask you to be able to prove it to them. But they'll want to see visible measurements. They want to see everything that's within the visible realm, not knowing that these elements of proof require to be in the intelligible realm. There have to be a thought process that the misologists just aren't wanting to go through. So that's like a serious condition, I think.
Yes, mental condition, not healthy. And I would say that this is pervert thinking. But the pervert part is about will, because the sophist has a skillful mind, but he is just doing dishonest things on purpose with his thinking, because his goal is not honest, but he's sacrificing this pursuit for truth, because his goal is not the truth. He's just he wants to prove something to himself or to others, that he's superior or whatever. So this is ego. That's and then we know that his goal is not the truth. He's not here to learn, as they say very often. They are just trying to prove their superiority only.
Half of the reason we're doing this in here is because I know the pushback that we're going to get by this group of misologists when they hear us doing this. I know for a fact, if any of you are listening out there, that they can't come and join us. They won't be able to come in and have a discussion about this. I hope that we will get some comments from this group of people, constructive comments within the chat about, how we go about exchanging proofs when there's no communication. They like to say that we can't communicate, but I beg to differ. I think we can communicate quite easily. I think it takes quite a lot for people to speak out on these sort of matters, because it's just matters of thought. And everybody knows in this arena that that's the most attacked thing. It's the most sacred anyway within this. This is your identity, is your thoughts and how you express them. People should be allowed to be able to do that without being told that they're a liar. I call it slander, libel about people. But these other people that are doing that, the hypocrites.
Yes, hypocrites. Yes, this is perfect name for them. Yes.
They won't come and have the conversation about it. They won't be able to say what's wrong or what they think is wrong, because they're misologists. It will become plain and obvious. It has been since we started the journey on logic. But this is more of I don't know whether you call the philosophy a deeper level or bringing it to the advanced simplicity to say that, look, this is for everyone. Everyone has a mind, and therefore everybody has their own philosophy. and it's how you develop that. I'd say, for me personally, my personal growth has come through talking to the good people in the On the Level Discord server. You get more clarity of your own mind by discussion, and like free and open discussion as well. Not like you would expect, like there are in other places where it's difficult to have a conversation. I just want to try and promote you guys. Like the amount of progress I've made through discussion, and that discussion has come in a hard way, with a arrival to this arena. But within this arena, I think there's a lot of people that do have questions, and there's a lot of people that have things to say. Some of those things are interesting. Some of those things are inspiring. Some of them are a load of shit. But it's free to talk about all of them. And you can ditch the shit. Carry on with the good stuff. But unless you're allowed to have these conversations, then how are you to know where your strengths and your weaknesses are? Which I think that's what we're after. We're after that sort of discussion. Knowing that I don't think you can have it anywhere else. Okay, carry on.
Then you ask, why does a triangle have these properties? Do triangles exist? How did I ever find a triangle? You start to ask about the very first definitions or propositions in Euclid. What is a point? Does a point exist? And suddenly your mind goes even further to the very basis of all reality.
That he's just described there is exactly what happened to me. Because somebody came in, somebody told me that straight lines bend. Somebody told me that non-Euclidean parallel lines can intersect. I went on a journey. I literally went on that journey. And I found my proofs. The journey's amazing. And I've been trying to hand it to other people. Inspire? I don't know. It's hard to say. But that journey, I'm like now got in a position where there's enough people here that are going to be interested enough. And it's an amazing journey. I think there's all sorts of lies and deceit and manipulation of the mind. Because that's the only place that this occurs. You can't change reality. Reality is fixed, static, never changing. But the mind, well, that's pliable, malleable. You can work wonders with the mind, providing you know how to take control of it. So you're better off knowing how to take control of your own mind. And that's done through proofs. If you don't have any proofs, and you don't have an understanding of proofs or an understanding of a logical system to help you along, then you can be fooled quite easily. That's what we're about here. Giving it back to people. This is something that everybody has a mind. Everybody's capable of this sort of thought. The skill or the beauty of the liberal arts and the discussion is the grammar, the logic, the rhetoric, the being able to discuss, the dialectic, and it gets better and better the more you do it. Hopefully we get some good conversations. It does take a lot of work in the mind, though. There's a lot of processing that needs to occur.
The forms themselves. Now I think you're in a position to understand the divided line. So Socrates wants to give us a visual image of what? Okay, what is this a divided line
put it
an
in
image
there.
of? Here's a shocker. This is meant to be a map of reality.
Right, I've put this in. I did a thing in the Discord. I don't know whether you guys can see it. Let me get it again.
Live chat.
Yeah, I'll just copy the image, put it back in again. I don't know. There you go. How far up it was. There you go. I drew this today. So if you want a quick look at it, I've done it there. It might not be too big in the with the fella holding it.
Okay, if I asked you at the beginning of this lecture, I want you to take out a pen and piece of paper, draw me a map of reality, please. What would you come up with? Now think about the achievement here. Our world is constituted, and let's look at the two columns here. So we've got a visible.
See, he's showing this divided line, right? And it's got quite a lot of stuff on it. But you've just heard Plato describe, or Socrates describing, just a line divided into 4 quadrants. It's got a little bit deeper than what it was described as in the book. I don't know where the rest of the things came from, but I like the way it works. It
World and an invisible world, and I've just
go back a bit.
now think about the achievement here. Our world is constituted, and let's look at the two columns here. So we've got a visible world and an invisible world, and I've just gone through them with a triangle. And within the visible world, we've got this relationship between knowers and the things known. So on the right-hand column are the things known. On my right, your left, if you're looking at the picture. On the other column, we have the knower and the properties of the knower corresponding to the things known. And then we have the thing unifying them. In the visible world, it's the sun. In the intelligible world, it's the idea of the good. And what we see then is degrees of reality, starting at the bottom with the images of things, which are very impermanent, less real, to the visible things, to the invisible mathematical things that launch us first from the visible into the invisible world of intelligible reality, and then to the forms themselves. Socrates assigns a name for each of these regions. So corresponding to images, he thinks we have a mental power, which he calls here imagination. For the visible things, he gives us a mental power, which he calls trust. Interesting word. The Greek is pistis. It gets translated as faith in the New Testament. Pistis.
Pause it there. Faith. Faith for the things, he calls it.
Yes, I'm not sure what he is really talking about right now, because if he's, I don't, I'm not sure if he's talking about something that people tell us, or that we can just trust our senses to see the world, because I don't know.
I think it's like you can see Dave, right? And you trust that that's Dave, right?
Yes,
Just
yes, in
by the
that
sight
sense,
of the thing, right? Just by the
Yes.
visible
Yes.
thing of it.
Yes, if he is referring to our senses, then yes, I would agree with that. And that's also Aristotle's approach,
Yeah.
that we can trust our senses.
Yeah, because the image is the imagination, and then the actual thing, you have what he calls trust, or he says later, Thomas Aquinas probably links that to faith. Pistis, did he say? I don't know, his SE here.
Yes, I would say that this is trust that you imagine in your brain the same thing that your eye is seeing.
Yeah.
There is no just something else that your eye can see something else like triangle, but you imagine, let's say, square.
Yeah.
So
You're trusting your own intellect or your own judgment to what you can see. Obviously, you can be fooled, but you have to have an element of trust involved in it, because all you have is the vision. The
so
optical. You don't have the rest of the things. You're not talking about touching it and talking to it or whatever.
yes, and he's talking about just normal sight sense without any tricks.
Yeah.
So you have your eyeballs, and what you can see with your eyeballs, this is it. Not I'm not talking about videos or holograms or whatever technology, just seeing objects in your room, let's say. So you can trust that your eye is perceiving image of the reality, and you, in your imagination, you can recreate this uh, um, uh, as it is. So you are not distorting reality by imagining
Yeah.
this reality in your brain.
I think what got me is the idea of this is a vision, this is trust, and this is translated to faith, right? If that's where faith is just the vision, the optical part of it, then the other stuff, the intelligible, that's where proofs are given. So the faith is within the sight, yet the intellect and all of that sort of stuff, as it builds up here, is the matter of the proofs gained within that. I
Yes,
mean, they do have to
knowledge.
comport as well all together, but vision on its own is a matter of faith in this old school sort of stuff. Think
Yes,
about
because
that, how deep that is, because nowadays, how much is that image? How much faith do people put in an image?
too much.
Yeah.
But knowledge is in you, in your intellect, and this part, this mental part of you is not. This is not imagination. So this is higher part than imagination. In imagination, you are just recreating, let's say, shape of the triangle. But knowledge about that triangle is not in your imagination. This is some other power which gives you ability to understand, not imagination. Imagination is not.
Imagination is just linked to the image, and all you can say
Yes, yes.
from an image is
This is
that you
your.
have to use your imagination, because it literally is just the image. It's not
Yes.
even the image of the thing, right? You'd have the thing to have an eyesight of. This isn't that. The image isn't.
Let's say image is the thing you can bring to you, to inside of you somehow. So this image is no longer outside as a thing is. So let's say triangle is outside of you, but image of the triangle is already inside of you. But this is still not knowledge about triangle. Knowledge about triangle is something else. This is not imagination. It is linked to that because you it supports your thinking. But image of triangle in your brain is not knowledge about triangle. This is logical process which is elsewhere, not in imagination.
So we're what, 17 minutes in
17 minutes in, yeah.
and almost 2 hours. So I wasn't too far off of my prediction.
Yeah, I was
I'm
holding it
I'm
off as long as I could.
I'm back. How are
Yeah.
things? Anybody want to summarize since we're recording this? We could do a summary. Does anybody want to summarize the last 2 hours?
Well, it's only
is it?
17 minutes.
Oh, sorry,
Yeah.
17 minutes.
I
So
don't know.
he was
Actually, recording for an hour and 10. So, go on, paper, if you want to have a go.
so he was talking about generally about beauty, about form, because beauty is connected to form. And then he brought this example with a triangle and image in the mirror
Hmm.
of the triangle. And he asked the question, if this triangle in the mirror is as real as real triangle. So he asked the question if image of the triangle is real triangle or not. And now he's bringing this divided line of Socrates.
Did anybody have a different opinion about whether or not that mirrored image
Yeah,
is
we did.
okay? Did anybody think that it is just as real as the triangle?
Yeah.
Yes, they
Yes,
did.
me,
Yeah.
Emma
Emma, and Beth,
and
we are on
Bev.
the same, basically on the same side, and John is on the other.
Well,
That-
but I easily could go the other way.
So, John, your take is that it's not as real.
No,
The
my
image.
take is the one that the gentleman drew on the blackboard could be considered more real because it was a physical act to create it, and he could walk away from that mirror and that triangle will still be there and it won't be in the mirror anymore. So that was my way of looking at it, I guess, or coming to
Okay.
that conclusion. But
Okay.
I understand their argument as well. The
Well,
one in the mirror is when the blackboard is in front of the mirror, the one in the mirror is just as real as the one on the blackboard.
okay, and I would tend to. Well, we disagreed earlier, John, so I need to make up for that. So, I, so I actually would tend to agree with John. I like the idea. I don't know what implications that is because I just agreed with John, but I kind of like the idea that of what you said, John, that you have to. It's a physical act to have created that triangle on the chalkboard, and there is not a physical act in reality to see it in a mirror, unless you just say you're pointing the created image in the mirror, and that's a physical act that you've done to create the triangle in
Yeah,
the
he
mirror.
could have drawn the
Is it
triangle
really?
with the mirror there at the same time whilst looking in the mirror.
Mhm.
Hmm,
Is there,
but his question was, is this triangle is less real than this one in the mirror?
Hmm.
Or we can just go back
right.
to how he phrased exactly what his
Do you
question.
want to? Yeah.
Because his question,
But-
I
but-
think, was about
If
which one of them is more real.
Let me check.
Board.
if
So
I
all of
if
you, I
I
think,
was
would
in the
say
There we go.
real.
Oh, who was
The
that?
image of the
if I was
triangle,
standing
NORAD.
triangle in
front of her,
the
Sorry, no, Red, go ahead.
Go ahead, NORAD.
I was at
Uh-oh.
Oh,
whole
Uh-oh.
You are roboting.
Is that
roboting.
is that robot? Is that no rad or is that?
No,
Yeah.
yes,
NORAD.
NORAD.
Oh.
probably me because I'm by an airport.
There you go.
Oh, there you go. You're good. You're good.
Oh,
Oh fuck.
okay, so
No, not anymore.
tape on my clock.
We'll come back to you.
man.
Back to you when you get past the airport.
Let me just get the question out, right? Let's hear what he said again.
here. Very good. Well, my question for you is, which is more real?
Okay,
The image
drew
of
a
the triangle in the
on a piece
mirror
of paper
or the image of the
in
triangle
the mirror.
that have
7 walks into my bath, sees me. I say, how many triangles are in this room? He wouldn't be wrong if he told me 1 or 2. Correct?
Well, so you broke up at the beginning of that, but I think I get the gist. So you're saying if somebody came in and you had the triangle and it was being shown in the mirror, and someone asked how many triangles, he wouldn't be wrong either way, if 1 or 2.
Correct.
You would be wrong because there are no actual triangles in the room. There are only images.
Yes, and
That's the
because
question. Which
I heard
image
this
is more
question.
real?
Okay.
Yes, he was talking about images. He asked
Okay.
question, which image of triangle is more real? He's not
but I was
talking
about the way
about
NORAD
triangle,
plays.
but images. Which image? So he brought two images. One on blackboard. This is one image number one, and then image in the mirror. So he's talking about images.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so all right. Go ahead and play it, Bev, because I'm having a thought here.
You want to hear it again?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Written on this. My question for you is, which is more real? The image of the triangle in the mirror or the image of the triangle that I've written on this chalkboard? All of you, I think, would say the image in the mirror is less real than the image it's reflecting.
See, it
Okay.
seems to
They're just images
think.
at
Yeah.
the end of the day, and they're both as real as each other as images.
Yes,
They are the
because I would
same.
say that it's just this image in the mirror is just created by other means.
But wait a minute. You can take that blackboard and while it's in front of the mirror and physically erase one of those lines of the triangle. You can't go to the mirror and physically erase one of those lines of the triangle.
Yes, you can. You can put a sheet over the
Oh,
mirror.
God.
Yes, you walked right into that one, John.
When
I'm
did I ever?
sorry. I'm sorry.
But okay, but I'll let you get away with that for now.
I agree.
My argument would be that the image in the blackboard you can see with your own eyes because light is bouncing from this blackboard and you can see.
Mhm.
And the
Mhm.
difference is that the light is bouncing to the mirror and then from mirror is bouncing to your eye. That's the difference.
So
Okay.
for me personally, it is just simple. They're both images, therefore they're both the same. They're
Okay.
both an image.
All right. All right. So I am now coming around. Sorry, John. I'm not, I am now coming. I mean, I see your point, John, and it is a really good point. I like it. And this is what this is for, right? I mean, this is the beauty of going through this stuff and talking about this is freaking phenomenal. I'm sorry I missed the first hour and a half of this. But I will say this. I understand, this is the way I would phrase it. The triangle is not real in the first place. The one that he just wrote on the chalkboard is not. It goes back to the we talked about this yesterday briefly. Like, what is reality? What is real? Like, if he held a perfectly, you know, created metal triangle, right? That was, that had perfectly straight lines to it, but it was actually something you could hold. Would that be any different?
Yes. But
Well,
if you
I'm
walk up,
asking. Hang on, John. I'm asking Bev and Emma and Paper.
Yes,
Would
it's not an image. The only image then
Okay,
would be in the mirror.
okay, all right. Then
It
I'm on
would be
board.
an image of a real thing.
I'm with you. I'm on
Yes,
board.
but this real thing would be not a triangle
What would it
because
be?
triangle is not physical thing in reality. So if you have metal sides with a thickness and etc., this is
Okay, I
just
get your point. It's not
representation.
2D. It's not 2D.
Yes.
okay,
Yeah, you have a structure. You're holding a structure is what you're holding.
Yeah. Okay, I'm with you. Do we have a
that
name? That brings up a good point. Do we have a name for that?
Well,
It's
see,
not a pyramid,
again, this is
right?
where I think I'd have to come in and say that as you're putting chalk on the chalkboard, then that's a real thing, right? There is a solid to that.
Which is what John was
but
saying.
but that's not what he's talking about. He's talking about the mental capacity of the image, right? The image that you see is already inside your head. That's
Yes.
the image. It's not the thing that you're talking about. So as you're holding a thing, the image is just the mental construct that you make for that thing, right? You
Yeah.
don't physicalize the thing within an image.
But we need to put it this way
Yes,
then. If that
in
gentleman walked up
Hang on,
to
paper.
holding that blackboard with that image on it, pointed to it and says, asked you, what is this? You couldn't say that's a triangle. You could only say it's a blackboard then, correct?
It's a drawing. It does say that he's written a triangle on the
Right.
thing. So the
The only
image is what
physical thing there
you see.
is a blackboard.
Yeah, that's why I think within this, the divided line, these things have been given your imagination, right? Your imagination made a triangle out of that thing, which obviously wasn't a triangle. It had a fucking bent line on it. Right? But
yeah,
you made
exactly.
the triangle out of it, out of your mental image, and your imagination told you triangle. Now then you had to then trust that the triangle was real. But you separated one image from another image.
Yeah. I'm on board with you guys. I'm on board with you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. But but then, excuse me. But then we're saying we all disagree with him.
Yeah.
He's saying
But that's the
he's
beauty
saying
of
I think
this, isn't it?
I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
I'm just pointing it out that he's saying that I think we can all agree that the image in the mirror is less real than the one I drew on the chalkboard. Well, the
I'm not sure
maybe
he
we didn't hear, we
actually
wouldn't hear
says.
from everybody, but except with the exception of John, say the majority of us have articulated that no, we don't agree with that.
I don't think he phrased the question with himself in it. If you listen to it again,
Yeah, we can. Let's go back.
yeah.
Mirror that I've written on this chalkboard. Question for you is,
Here we go.
which is more real? The image of the triangle in the mirror or the image of the triangle that I've written on this chalkboard?
I've written.
All of you, I
Keep
think, would
going.
say the image
All of
in
you,
the mirror is less real
I
than the
think,
image
would
it's
say.
reflecting. The
think
mirror
all you would
is
say, yeah.
less
Mhm.
real.
So he's
Wow.
yeah. So
This
he's
kind of
Yeah, go on.
he's not saying I think this. He's
Yeah, he's not
saying
agreeing himself.
I think
You
you.
think this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Most
Does
of
he-
you will say that, which he might, because he's probably used that in his classes quite a lot, and he would have
Yeah,
asked
maybe he has experience.
Yeah.
So maybe most of his students said that yes, this image in mirror is less real.
But just say you have those images next to each other in front of the classroom, okay? You got the image in the reflection of the mirror and you got the image on the blackboard. You turn out the lights, you tell the student, go grab me the triangle.
Well, you can't.
Can he grab a triangle?
No, you're going to grab
Well,
either the
neither
mirror or you're
one-
going to grab the
neither one
chalkboard.
exists in reality.
Well,
you're not
that's the
grabbing
point.
the triangle.
The image, right? The image is not tangible. It's a mental. We're dealing with the mind here, not the physical touching, tasting it, or
Given
anything.
what the mind creates correctly.
Yeah.
Correct.
Which is pretty
it's not
poignant
real.
as to the the place that we're in, where people want to see images. It's the images that are the thing that can fool people. I think. There's a lot been made of pictures, isn't there?
Yeah. It is fascinating. Fascinating stuff. I didn't mean to drag you guys back 6 minutes.
Did it? Was it
So-
6 minutes?
No
Could we go-
problemo.
You were at 17, yeah.
Okay.
So
It's okay.
Well,
that was
well-
riveting.
Right. Well, we'll
That
go
was
over. We need to go over this. I think again. Anyway, I'll go from 15 because I think he's doing the divided line.
divided line, yeah.
Yeah.
do triangles exist? How did I ever find a triangle? You
There you
start
go.
to ask about the very first definitions or propositions in Euclid. What is a point? Does a point exist?
No.
And suddenly your mind goes even further to the very basis of all reality, the forms themselves. Now, I think you're in a position to understand the divided line. So,
Yeah, okay.
Socrates wants to give us a visual image of what? Okay, what is this a divided line an image of? Here's the shocker. This is meant to be a map of reality. Okay, if I asked you at the beginning of this lecture, I want you to take out a pen and piece of paper, draw me a map of reality, please. What would you come up with? Now think about the achievement here. Our world is constituted, and let's look at the two columns here. So we've got a visible world and an invisible world, and I've just gone through them with a triangle. And within the visible world, we've got this relationship between knowers and the things known. So on the right-hand column are the things known. On my right, your left, if you're looking at the picture. On the other column, we have the knower and the properties of the knower corresponding to the things known. And then we have the thing unifying them. In the visible world, it's the sun. In the intelligible world, it's the idea of the good. And what we see then is degrees of reality, starting at the bottom with the images of things, which are very impermanent, less real, to the visible things, to the invisible mathematical things that launch us first from the visible into the invisible world of intelligible reality, and then to the forms themselves. Socrates
Hey, Bev, can you pause it?
assigns
Yeah. Go on.
It's hard to read at the very bottom.
I've
of-
done one in the live chat.
Oh, you did? Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. So is there in the divided line, is there says images and things from the bottom up, right on the left-hand side? And that's called the visible realm.
Within the visible realm, yes.
Yeah, so is things considered tangible? Is that the difference between those two?
I think that's the way with what we were talking about is he's got the visible images, which I don't know what back in that day were, maybe pictures, paintings.
Yeah, potentially it, right?
And then you have the physical things, the things that you can see.
The picture of the tree versus the tree.
I think seeing the tree.
Yes.
Yeah, one of them
Knowing
is
that
an
it's
image,
tangible.
and the other one is a thing. Right? They're both. You can see both of them, but one of them is a thing, and the other one is like an image. Maybe the mental construct of the thing can also be classed as an image.
And I would say that this trust is about this thing, that if you are looking at the tree, you are seeing actually an image of the tree.
Yeah.
So
there's
but
a trust
you have
element
trust,
that the tree is the tree.
that this image,
Yeah.
this image is equivalent to real thing you are seeing, you are looking at.
Yeah. Yeah, you're trusting that you're not being tricked by the thing, but I mean there could be a more inspection, and then you could find that you have been. Yeah, I have been tricked. It's a very clever body painting or something. I don't know.
Right, exactly. Life size trick of a tree. It looks like a tree. Looks like 3D depth to it, and so you're trusting that it's a tree. And then you walk up to it and you touch it and you go, it's not a tree. You freaking tricked me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I get the trust bit. That's freaking fascinating.
But listen to what he calls it as well. Like, did we get?
But
to
there's
that?
no trust in imagination though.
Does he
I
calls
noticed
it?
Those are two separate things.
Turns to faith.
Yeah.
That trust, it turns to faith. So the physical things, that's where the faith is.
Yeah, but there's not even, is there even faith in the imagination then?
Well, the imagination, and you have to, it's like, that's below, isn't it? The image and the imagination is below even the trust of that you can trust what you're seeing.
Oh, guys, this is phenomenal, because you know what this tells me is there's no way to have trust in anything that's imagination based.
Yeah.
No
Or even
way.
just a picture of
Logically.
something. Yeah.
Right. There's no way to do that logically. And I've been saying this for quite a while. I think way back when, I don't know if you remember, Bev, but is SE around? He'll yell at me. SE and I had an argument about what if I showed you a picture of your wife kissing another man? And I said, I wouldn't believe it. He said, but I show you a picture and I show you that it is absolutely your wife. And I'd say, I still wouldn't believe it. I don't care what you showed me. I wouldn't
Mhm.
believe it. There's no way that an image slash imagination could ever win my trust. I mean, maybe I might say, like, I had another argument with, was it the homie Don at one point or somebody he said, well, do you believe the Eiffel Tower exists? And I said, yes, because I've been there and I've touched it.
Hmm.
I've actually gone up in it. So yes. But honestly, before I went to France, visited Paris and touched the Eiffel Tower, I don't know. It becomes a trust thing, but how can you trust your imagination? How could you trust an image? How can you? Truly. I mean, you can illogically do it, I suppose, and stupidly place your trust in imagination, but
Mm,
that's an easy
Wait,
way to get
wait,
tricked.
wait, wait, Kevin. I think
Yeah.
that you are confusing image with imagination.
Okay, fair
So,
enough.
because
Yeah.
you are talking about images that you could not trust. This is fair, but imagination, this is not picture outside of you, like
Okay.
photo.
Yeah, yeah.
This is image inside of you.
Yeah.
Well, can you
So,
trust that?
yes,
Absolutely.
because it represents what you can see in reality. If in this reality you can see this photo, this that SE brought to you with your wife kissing other man, so you are in your imagination, you have this image of this photo.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't tell you anything about the real thing,
Right.
about your wife, but imagination still works. But we should rather talk about image. If that image is, let's say, true or not true,
Mhm.
but imagination has nothing to do with that.
Yeah, that would
Because
See,
the trust issue would be if you were to actually think that you see your missus with another fella, right? That would be you trusting your mind at that point. Then you would have to go and either confirm or turn around and walk away, like to never challenge it. That would be up to you. The image, like that's what it's got. It's got, he says, the left hand side is the physical realm, the
mm-hmm.
object, and the other one is the subject, the subjective, this with the internalization of the thing. So you've got the image which internalizes as is imagination,
Yeah.
and then you've got the thing that internalizes as trust. Like you have to trust that when you pick up a fork, you are actually picking up a fork.
Right.
That's the trust issue that you have with it, I'm guessing, within your own mind. That's what he's trying to say.
Yes, which doesn't exist down below, right? Because I see that divide. I
Yeah.
mean, this is called the divided line, right?
Hmm.
I see that divided line between imagination and trust on the epistemology side as a line that cannot be crossed.
Yeah,
Am I right in thinking that?
I
Because
would
that's
say
how I
so.
view
The
it.
same. Yeah, it's like that's even the image, like the literal of the picture. The image is below you even being able to consider it as a trust.
Right. Freaking fascinating,
Yeah,
man.
especially
Okay.
within this realm.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Great.
All
Appreciate it.
right.
Name for each of these regions. So, corresponding to images, he thinks we have a mental power, which he calls here imagination. For the visible things, he gives us a mental power, which he calls trust. Interesting word. The Greek is pistis. It gets translated as faith in the New Testament. Pistis.
that part there, right?
Yep.
Faith within the thing, right?
Not within the image.
Not within the image, right? And not within the bit that he's going to go to next, the part where mathematical objects and proof exists, right?
So
the
he's
faith.
talking about
God,
truth. So you trust by means of looking at something that this thing is real. So you trust that reality you can see is real.
Hmm.
This is not just hologram or whatever. That they thing you can see, let's say chair or whatever, this is real chair. That you can see real chair, not faked chair, real chair. So
Right.
you can trust that this chair really exists. So your imagination via image with your eyeballs are telling you truth about reality, not about matrix, but about reality. So the reality is not matrix, it's real
Right.
reality, not fake reality.
Yep. Yep.
and the
Yeah, that's the
progression.
fascinating thing. Boy, weren't we right on when we started saying that it's a freaking religious cult, right? In this arena, they're worshiping the monad
They're
because they have
basing
something in their
everything in
imagination
faith.
that they've placed their faith on.
Yeah.
Wow.
What about dreams? Can
Do
you
you place your
distinguish that it's not reality when you're in a dream?
do
I
you
don't
place your
dream.
faith in the dream though, right?
No, but I'm talking
That's the
about
thing.
while you're dreaming. I'm not talking
Hmm.
about after you wake up, during the dream.
I don't. So I'm out.
You don't dream?
You guys discuss that. No.
Yeah,
You've
I don't.
never, I gotta say, you've never experienced a dream, Beth?
Um possibly, but
That's
not
weird. Okay.
Don't
not
remember them.
Well,
not
that's
for
One of
8
fine.
those people
years.
that never
But
remembers. Yeah.
Actually,
I
I do. I
know.
can remember a series when I was about 7 or 8 years old of
That
dreams
was
that
it.
I had that it was all
Uh,
like pure white and pretty distressing actually.
I've experienced many different types of dreams, and during the dream, I think I'm really experiencing what I'm experiencing, and you wake up and you realize that you weren't experiencing what you're experiencing. Sometimes you regret it, sometimes you don't. But the point is, how do we distinguish reality? If a
That's a
dream,
great question.
This is,
How does one distinguish reality?
I would say that I was dreaming now, mm, not not really, but in childhood, yes, many times, and sometimes I dreamt whatever is this pa- past tense in English, uh, uh, the same, like film, the same thing. I I was dreaming the same dream many times.
and I'm sure everybody's had a sex dream and woke up with an erection, the males here, right? I mean, we've all experienced that. Okay, Bev, I don't know if you have or not, but I'm sorry to bring that up, but we're adults here. We we have to address these things, right? I mean, I don't know. I always question that, so we don't talk about sleep or enough in my.
Uh-oh.
But imagine works. Yes,
Yes,
imagination
yes,
works during
yes.
the dream. It's like you can you can let's say mm, like reproducing a film in your mind
Correct.
on the fly as you will.
Yep.
But in the dream, you are not controlling that. That's the
Correct.
difference.
That
That your
that
will
and
is
that
not controlling that.
Yeah, and
that's
that's
and
still
that
in just in the imagination, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
like right in that bottom corner.
it isn't. We don't know. We don't know where that information in the dream is coming from because sometimes it's
But it
things we never
doesn't fit
But
into the trust part, does it? It's not
okay,
into the
no, I agree.
things.
I agree with you there.
Yeah.
Yes, this is pure imagination.
Right.
There's not much else to be gained from it, because you're not going to be able to impart any intellect and any processing on anything in that ability. I'm not aware of people lucid dreaming and being able to
Control their dream. Yeah.
control the logical part of the brain whilst dreaming.
Right.
I would imagine that'd be a bit boring, wouldn't it?
It depends what you're dreaming about.
Well, you'd
I
be
guess.
like, surely this can't be right. You'd wake up.
Yes, I always wake up. If something was wrong with in my dream, and I had to oppose to say no, I woke up immediately. So
I always tend to wake up just before I get the $1 million that's laying right there.
yes,
Just before I've got the cash, and I would wake up with it in my bed. It never seems to happen.
how very disappointing.
Yeah, I
Right?
wonder why dreams usually always end up that way, where you never really get.
Well, I know.
what
You
is
never get there.
desiring. Yeah, that's weird. That's weird.
Are we right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Then in the invisible realm, he gives us the mathematical forms, and he calls the mental ability to see the mathematical objects thought. And then the forms themselves he calls intellect, nous, intellection. And so
he separates the things from the mathematical forms. What do you reckon that is?
Yes, because this our thought is the way how our mind, not imagination, our mind is seeing mathematical objects.
And within the mathematical objects, you could place that tree, but place it within a distance away. You're like mathematicalizing the size of the tree, and you're working out, comprehending the thought that makes it so far away. But you have to know the thing to trust that the tree, you've already been to the tree. The tree is a certain size, so it therefore becomes a mathematical object within the thought process. All things are mathematical, aren't they? Providing you put the thought to it.
Yes. So this is I cannot not to refer to Aristotle's abstraction.
Yeah, well, please
because,
do.
This is a basic, let's say, theory of knowledge or theory of cognition in Aristotelian, let's say, organon, basically. So this is physical. First abstraction is physical abstraction. So we abstract image of real thing. That's why it is called physical abstraction. And this abstraction is in our eye, because in fact to our retina is coming light. Not real thing is not flying into our eye. So this first abstraction is within our eyes. And this mathematical abstraction is that we are seeing actually forms or shapes without matter, because in real world we have these objects, they have a certain shape, like Rubik's cube, for example. It has shape of a cube, but this is a real thing. But in our mind, we have only shape without matter. So because if we would have a shape with matter, it would mean that this Rubik's cube is really physically in our head, which is impossible, of course. So this is abstraction, mathematical abstraction. So we are creating image of a real thing, and we can see, of course, shapes, but we are recreating in our imagination thing without real matter, and let's say it is called common matter. So because we know that Rubik's cube has matter inside. So when we are imagining Rubik's cube in our mind or imagination or in our brain, we are of course, we are recreating shape of the cube, but also we are like recreating matter, because we know that it has matter, but this matter is not real. So we are dealing then with shape without real matter. And things without real matter, they are mathematical. So this is mathematical part of abstraction. And the third is, of course, metaphysical, where we are dealing without any images at all. Like, for example, when we are talking about first principles of reasoning, we are not using even shapes, just thinking about thinking. This is metaphysics. Okay.
So,
I hope that I didn't bore you.
no, that was good paper. So I don't have that much um, experience with the divided line. I've heard about it. I've kind of seen this chart before at some point. I'm very confused by this upper half. Like, why is the mathematical? What was it called? The mathematical is it objects? Is that what
Yes,
that is
Thought.
on the left?
mathematical
Yeah.
objects, thought. But
Is
at the
thought, but not intellect, right? The form is intellect, not thought. Thought
Well, it
and
all goes
intellect
together,
is
doesn't
separate.
it?
yes, I can explain. Intellection, it means that we understand by means of forms. So this is the way how we understand things, by forms, not by matter, by forms or organization of or structure, maybe
Yeah.
some
It's
even
Are we
better.
talking about kind of like the porphyry tree that we went through at
exactly.
division?
That's
Yes,
what I was
yes,
Okay,
going to
all
say.
right.
form.
Yes.
Yes,
It all
yes.
Okay.
builds up together, and the forms is the totality of all of these things that you've put places together.
Agreed. Yeah.
But this is metaphysics, right? That's what they're after. The form would be the perfect, the truth, the proof.
Yeah. Right. Okay. But again, it's intriguing to note that the mathematical objects piece is not intellect. That's thought only, not intellect. That there's a dividing line between mathematical object and intellect.
I am not really sure, because he wrote down this this line, divided line, and he put that thought here. But this is him. Um, I Let's say it is not that I don't trust him, but maybe this is some simplification
But
here.
we don't have to trust him necessarily. As I understand it, the divided line has a Greek. I mean, we can go back to the original Greek and look at the Greek words and trying to figure out if there's a better way to think about it. It's irrelevant though, paper. What I'm saying is there is a dividing line between mathematical objects and the corresponding epistemological piece to it, and form and the epistemological piece to it. They're separated. And for me, that works because people that come at any situation with mathematics alone and claim that there's some sort of superior intellect or perfection in the word that I think he used for the forms and that Bev mentioned.
Do you want to see
I
that
don't
one that
agree
I've
with that
just
at
put in?
all.
Have you seen the one that I've just put in there? It's a different one.
No.
It's got world of images. painting, sculptures, shadow, reflection, theatre, fiction, unicorn. The world of objects, tables, dogs, trees, cars, birds, etc. Belief. World of numbers, which would have been mathematical, numbers, shapes, universals, souls. And he does label that one intellect in this one. And the last one they have as being reason.
Okay. That still works, right?
Yeah.
I don't care what you call it. There's still a dividing line between what they're saying here, the world of numbers, or in the other one, mathematical objects, and the forms, right? That there's in this hierarchy, if you want to call it a hierarchy or dividing line, there's a difference there. And I see that difference when we talk to certain group of people. It's very clear to me. This one might even be better, right? There's no reason there. The proofless logician, that we've
Yeah.
talked about many times, right? There might be an intellect there, granted, but or the other one, right? There could be thought
Misologists.
there, right? There could be thought there, but there's not reason or intellect if you use the other example that he's talking about in the video, right? So
He,
that to me is an important distinction.
he's talking, he uses word intellection because he was talking about things that are intelligible. It means that are understandable. So, that's why he's putting forms here, because
Hmm.
we can understand things by means of forms, but these forms have to be in that things.
Right.
If things would not have these forms,
Hmm.
or, let's say any form, they would be not understandable for us.
Yeah. See,
Right.
they are things that have passed through the mathematicalization into the form. Right? You can
Yep.
measure it, you can tell how smooth or what, there are certain characteristics you can give it as it passes through the thing to the form.
Right.
I think this, when you take this, right, this is the start of the scientific method, right? It's the process. It shows you this is where you want to take things. You want to take it from the bottom and move it up that thing. And it's the study of doing that.
Right. I agree. Yeah. And that there's distinct dividing lines.
Yeah.
So when someone says that they have a proof, if we were to posit the idea that proof is at the top, at the very top, but they're sitting in one of the lower levels, even down in the very bottom
Yeah.
of
Here's a
imagination,
picture.
and say
Look.
they have a proof. Yeah, here's a picture. Like, okay, go on.
That's ridiculous, isn't it?
Yeah,
like
it is
you
totally
once you
ridiculous.
know this from this side, once you know that the triangle, the proof of a triangle doesn't come from you drawing a triangle and measuring the angles. Once you know this is the script,
Hmm.
then conversation with somebody who just keeps going, "Nuh-uh, prove to me, prove it." You know that they don't even know what proof is. They can't.
Yep.
They can't get up from the visible realm. They can't leave
Yep.
that to do the thought process.
Absolutely. Yeah, you can see all the arguments, quote unquote arguments, that we've had over the years spun out in this picture,
Mm.
and almost exclusively they're down at the very bottom. That's where their quote arguments are. They don't even have any that are up in the world of objects, in my opinion, right? It's like, what can you actually show me? Equal what is it? Equal potential of angle potential of adjustment or something? Is that
Potential
what you're going to
angle
show
of
me?
adjustment. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Is
In a
that what you're
picture.
going to
I'll draw
in
it.
a
Yeah.
picture?
Let me draw
Right?
it. Back down to
Yeah, no,
imagination again, isn't it? Like it just keeps
yes.
going back there.
Yes. And it has to, doesn't it? Because the only place left is belief, right? Your
Mm.
monad. It's you go to your faith. You make it your faith, and then you make it your intellect, and then you make it your reason. But it you can't. I mean, you can delude yourself, which is what happens, I think. But it's not real, if I can use that word, right? Certainly doesn't follow this logic that's depicted here in the divided line. It's phenomenal. It's good.
So
All right,
good.
thank you.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Okay. Carry on.
So now here's what I want something to notice about this divided line. In this picture of the divided line, all of reality is mapped out here. Everything is intelligible. Everything coheres. So the images are always images of something visible. And the visible things are all backed up by a deeper, intelligible reality. So that although reality has degrees of depth and is stratified in this way, all of those things can act as sort of ways of entering into the depth of reality. Now, what Socrates suggests is that back behind this whole intelligible map that he gives us, there must be some cause. And he identifies that cause as the ground of that whole reality. He calls in the Republic the idea of the good. And that then gives us some idea of what philosophy is. Philosophy is to know not just the particular beautiful things, but beauty itself, to know the ground of everything, to know the idea of the good. Just to prepare us for what's going to come. Philosophy builds in this divided line. It tells us there are, in fact, three different areas in philosophy that one can pay attention to and study. And these are some big words now. So the side of the line that is about the nature of things, the images, the things themselves, and the invisible things, the study of that in philosophy is called ontology. You can say it, ontology. Okay, the other word is tougher. There's also a side in us, the knowers, that corresponds to it. The study of how we know, our knowing faculties. That in philosophy is called epistemology. Ooh, that's a tougher one. You can say it. Epistemology. It just refers to the philosophy of the way we know things. I'm going to use those words, ontology and epistemology, later, but I'll explain what I mean again and just remind you. But get used to them. Trust me, you will sound so cool the next time you go to a party.
No, don't ever.
Definitely do not do this.
Emma, you could use
Hang on,
it.
hang on, hang on.
Emma,
It all depends
Emma
on
can
the type
use
of party you're
epistemology.
going to.
Epistemological. That's so good. So
Depends
good.
on what party you're going to.
How often do you reckon you could
Fair
actually
enough, Rob.
use it? Let us know.
No, I could give an example because like he got like this. Remember the nerds.
Yeah, the film.
You might be able to talk like that at one of their parties. Just saying.
I think if you can get any of these words in first in a conversation, you're onto a winner. People will think you're really smart.
And say, that's an epistemological question. That will be a great
Hang on.
At the top,
Stop,
with the idea.
Stop.
That's an epistemological.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, but people already think I'm smart.
Yeah. I find it's better if you say it wrong as well.
Carry on. I'm sorry.
This next one is the one, right? This next one is the word that everyone should be able to use.
The idea of the good is metaphysics. Metaphysics then is the area of philosophy in which we study the first principles of all of reality. So metaphysics, ontology, epistemology on the divided line.
How about that? We started off with geometry. First principles of geometry. That led us to, thank you very much, Raven, first principles of logic. Now, this fella's just give us metaphysics. The first principles of reality.
Yes.
That's where we're at.
And in metaphysics, we are not dealing with images of, let's say, objects. So that's the part where we are going, where we are talking about reality without, let's say, physical representations of reality. So we are using just logic, what has to happen, or what is impossible to happen, or what it is impossible to be, or what is necessary to be. So this is part of ontology, ontology. But yes, this is metaphysics, because we are not talking about physical objects. We are not touching any physical object. We are not seeing any physical object here. But still, we are talking about reality, because we have to determine what thing is without seeing that thing. So this is metaphysics.
I always think if you're ever in a conversation and you can bring up metaphysics first, you will be in charge of the conversation from there on in. This, as soon as you mention metaphysics, you're dealing with a mental game. And if you can come out with it first, then you will deem to be in control of this mental game that you're playing. Because there are no answers to this. Once you get into metaphysics, there is only discussion, conversation, and like reasoning, like paper says.
Yes, logic. So,
Yeah.
so you for example, if two people, yes, people are talking, are discussing metaphysics. So they have only logic for their disposal. They have no pictures from NASA or whatever, no measurements of anything, just logic.
And the
What has
trivium.
to be, yes,
Yeah,
this part, but pure logic without reference to to physical reality. So first principles of reasoning. So we can prove that something is impossible to be in ontology and metaphysics because, for example, part is not the whole. We are not referring to physical objects because this is an axiom. So we are referring to axioms, first principles of reasoning by on its own. So we don't prove that part is not a whole. We just know that, but without any reference to physical reality. So, and on that kind of axioms and proofs, logical only, is based metaphysics. We are not dealing with proving. So this is not scientific method in like experiment. Okay, we can validate our hypothesis by making some experiment. No, you cannot make any experiment in metaphysics.
Yeah, which is why if anyone thinks they're going to go to, let's say, Geos or Gem Pandas or any of these other places in our little arena, and think that you're going to approach anything that resembles this kind of thing or conversations that would stem from this kind of thing from metaphysics, you're sadly mistaken.
I agree. That's why I don't go to those places anymore.
Just
They-
not going to
I,
happen.
They won't
I
even
watch
acknowledge.
videos on YouTube once in a while, but that's it.
Yeah, they won't even acknowledge that it is metaphysics. They want to take it into the realm of things again, don't they? In pictures and images. Shadow giants, which we're going to get onto in a minute. Can't believe it's taken us this long to get here. This is fucking great. I love this. But it does show that we keep bringing it into the what we do know. You can only place your own imaginings or your own knowings. You can only relate to something that you can, and you can bring stories in. And I have to relate all of my conversations that I've ever had with a certain group of people. The group of people, obviously, they've taught us a lot, but come to the realization that they've got nothing else to give. It's become extremely repetitive. And I know now that a mythologist is never going to come to this. A mythologist can't even listen to this. I would suggest that our numbers will go right down.
Yep.
Because nobody wants to actually listen to this. This is directed mainly at the people that are listening. If you're still listening to this after 2 hours, then on YouTube, then you should come into this Discord server. Or if it's in years later, still look around. We might still be here. I
Might
don't
still be
know.
around. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say this, just to go back to what you said a little bit earlier, because I think it really is profound in, in light of this stuff, which is there is no answers. There are no answers. There's no right. There's no wrong. There's just the discussion and hopefully logic, right? Hopefully logic is
Yeah.
part of that. But that's it. That's why the numbers will dwindle. That's why you can't have these conversations at, these other places. And even if you go into the broader world, if you're into some of the conspiracy theory worlds or anything else, any of these topics, if you want to get to a philosophical conversation, most likely you're not going to be able to do it because there's no answers. And as human beings, being someone who's been trained in human behavior, human beings want answers. They're not comfortable in the world of no answers. And just having the conversation, hopefully talking about logic and those kinds of things and disagreeing with one another civilly and saying, yeah, I kind of see, just like we did earlier when I first came on, and John and the triangle. I mean, that was a fantastic discussion. We agreed and then disagreed, and then we moved on. You're not going to have any of this. It's just not possible.
I think half of what we're doing here is there's a false dichotomy that we've all obviously come into this arena, and we are swayed into that false dichotomy. And this is showing that there is no false dichotomy. There is only reality and the discussion about reality, to which there is no right or wrong. There is no putting your finger on this is the answer. There is only discussion. Yet that's the discussion that isn't allowed to take place because it ends the false dichotomy.
Yeah,
Going back,
I feel like it started my breakaway from the dichotomy itself when I came here.
Kevin, I think going back to what you said about human beings wanting answers, I think that only applies when the consistency they require in their life changes. And then they want answers. You give somebody, a human being, a consistent life and give them what they expect on a daily basis and have it run smoothly, they're not going to question anything.
Yeah, no,
Only,
I tend to
yeah,
agree with you on that, John. If everything's good,
yeah,
right, pretty much, right, everything's all good, then you don't have but then you don't really tend to want to have philosophical thoughts or discussions with other people, right? Because what's the point? It's like you got everything you need. Why, if you're not contemplating why is the world this way, is there a god, why would god be a certain way, why is this way, why do people think that way, why do you think that way, right? You're dealing with struggles, if I can say that, right? Not fights really, but something might not be right, or or you don't even know if it's right, right? The thoughts that you're having lead you down this path. But you're right. If all's good and you really don't care and you've got everything you need, I think that's why Bev said you're going to see the numbers drop, because there are
and
going to be those people that just have, doesn't
that's
matter to
why
me,
we are where we are right now, too,
right?
because they gave us that for a long time.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, especially in the West, right? And I
Yeah.
think why the West, this is Western philosophy, but we don't have this philosophy anymore in the West. What this guy is teaching, we don't have anymore in the West. I mean, think about it in the UK, in the US, in Canada. We don't have this anymore. This is gone. In Australia, this is going away. It's going away because what I believe, NORAD and I actually had a had a DM conversation on the side a little while ago. It's because our kids aren't taught this. They're not taught this. They don't know how to think in these ways. They're not going to have the discussions. And once, to your point, John, right? Once the things are gone, the good things are gone. Holy shit, right? Be ready because
Yeah.
it's not going to be a good. There's not nothing good's going to happen because you can't lean back on this, right?
It's going to
To
be
have a
difficult
civil
for those that
conversation.
it's going to be difficult for those that see it, that know it's coming.
Yeah,
Those that don't see it coming, oh my God.
yeah, yeah. Does anybody disagree with me on that? I mean, in the West, we don't have this anymore.
What's the this again?
The ability to have these conversations about metaphysics and the idea that there are no answers and just have discussions about it, right? Like no one's trying to lop off anybody's heads or get anybody canceled over any of the stuff that this guy is teaching, right? The stuff that stems from what this guy is teaching, the idea of Western philosophy.
I think it transcends all of the things, but I mean, it like they say, the whole of Plato's story is the discussion about a guy that asks questions and they kill him
Right, they kill him in the end because
simply
they
for
didn't have it.
asking questions. Yeah, it's just
Right.
that it's uncomfortable nowadays, as it always was. Right, these people didn't want to be asked the questions. That I think, not wanting to push the Masons, right? But there has to be a group of people that do want to talk and have this discussion. And obviously, they'll find out that they can't just talk to anyone. There are a certain group of people that only them are going to be able to talk to about those certain things.
Well, the elite, right? The elites can have these conversations, as we said, right? It's taught in elite schools, right?
Yeah, it's probably also taught or discussed in the lodge meetings.
Sure, probably, probably. But here's a question that just popped into my head. Does anybody want to take this on? Theoretically, right? That this Western philosophy, quote, Western philosophy, the things that we're learning here, Plato, Socrates, Aristotle, Euclid, all this stuff, right? Led eventually to the quote enlightenment,
Hmm.
right? And the leaps in learning and invention and et cetera, et cetera. Does anyone buy that or not? And if you do buy that, what do you see coming down the pike? Because this is gone. I submit, I posit, this is gone in the West today.
We've gone
Oh, I don't
backwards.
buy it. I'll just give you that. I don't buy it.
The Enlightenment was them trying to kid themselves that they'd actually got better. I think there's been a
So they
slow.
were. Go ahead, John.
These people have to know the history and what's being uncovered now. That the ancients were much more advanced than we are.
Good point.
So I
I'm
mean,
starting to believe that myself.
oh, yeah,
Yeah.
oh, to me, there's no question anymore. I mean, I don't know how much.
Because I've been watching a lot of like ancient Egypt and pyramid stuff, and they don't even have a clue.
Look at the underground cities that are being uncovered through digs. I mean, most cities today are built on top of other cities that have been underground for some reason, whatever reason. There are many
Okay, so
different theories.
there were people that were obviously far smarter than us. Agreed.
Based on what, yeah, I've been
Where
seeing, I
are they?
agree.
They're
Where
not
are
here.
they?
Yeah, they're not here. We are. So you have to put that out of your mind, because as smart as they may have been and enlightened as they may have been, they're not here.
Right.
We
They're
are.
not here.
But
And
the evidence of them being here is.
But
Yeah,
what does that
very well maybe.
what does that give you? What how does that help you? Because it's about you at this point now, isn't it? It's about
Right.
we're not
I
talking
agree.
about them. We're talking about your mind. This is all of this philosophy is what occurs in your
You know,
mind.
yeah, it only helps you in the way that it lets you know that something took place, where a drastic change happened. Now,
Yeah.
can we pinpoint that? I don't know. I mean, people call it their, you like you talked about the reset, or was it the Great Flood? I don't know, but obviously these times did exist, unless all this information is total bullshit.
Well, it's I'm with Bev, right? It's like where do you go with it? Like you can acknowledge the past, theorize and acknowledge the past, and say, yeah, great. But Bev's point is valid, right? They're not here. Those people aren't here. Their progeny, whatever they had, their progeny lost it, right? Or it was taken from them, whichever you prefer to believe. So,
Yeah.
so where are we today, though? Where do we go from here? Does anyone teach their children this stuff? Like, right? Because that's what's missing. If we're all in agreement, this shit is taught in very, very elite places around the world.
How
But
about
this,
this? How about this? This stuff of Plato's, right? That civilizations have been and gone and all of that. And all of the stored wisdom that they could ever amass was placed in, let's say, 3 books, 3 sets of books. You've got this, Plato, right? All of his scripted, all of the stuff, all of the wisdom. But it's scripted within these things for discussion. It's within he scripted dialectic because that's what he wanted to occur. There's discussion. It's all about that and in the minds of people. You will always get better, but you can always have these books to use as an example to
right?
bring discussion to go forward, right? Then you've got Euclid, the perfect,
Hmm.
the geometric, right? That is unfaultable logic, literally in the shape of line and form and all of that. And then you've got the organon to base all of the mind processes to put all of these things together. But you can't place an intellect as an ultimate guide. It's not there because everyone is an individual and it's up to everybody to release their own potential with this guides, right? But it all comes down to the discussion from and what occurs in discussion from these set of books, because I don't
Yeah.
think there's any other way of doing it. Like it's describing there a map of reality is a fucking line.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
mean, they do it. They've done it again. They've put these 4D line and they've added time into it, right? The science, new science, modern science, fucking frantic bunny is basically building on this. It's just showing you the scientific method, and like literally you can base everything on all of this stuff. It's just a progression. It's a furthering of a story. It's so fucking deep. I've seen behind all of this, there's ulterior motives. But what you're dealing with is something that's always been there. It's never going to change. That Plato is obviously dealing with it when he's talking about Socrates. The story is don't ask too many questions, particularly of a certain group of people.
Cautionary tale.
Mm-hmm. You have to use other ways and other means to be able to achieve what you want, but it's also an instruction manual for other people.
Yeah, that's what we said yesterday, right? It could be a cautionary tale. Well, let's look at it this way. You can think of just taking Plato and just the Republic, right? And the story around Socrates and him ending up dead. And you could take that one of two ways. Plato is good in that he's describing what happened with Socrates, the courage of Socrates to do this, even though we know he ends up dead in the end. And it's a cautionary tale. Or Plato is not good, and it's an instruction manual for tyrants. This is how you handle people who question. This is what you do to them.
This is how you tell people what you're
This is
gonna
how,
do.
yes, this is how you tell people what you're going to do, so you make sure to shut them the hell up and they don't ask too many questions, because they damn sure don't want to be like Socrates, because in the end it doesn't work out too well for him.
Yeah, there are other
Could go
plays,
either
right?
way.
Yeah, there are other plays that will tell you that you read those plays and that's scripted exactly what occurs with the sophists. Exactly the same form of argument, exactly the play. It's like a playbook. They're taking the challenges, they're taking Zeno and all of that, the challenges to Socrates and Plato as a form of argument.
Either way, I would submit it's instructional for us today. Either way you take it.
It's still usable, right? It's meant to
Absolutely.
be over thousands of years. These stories have remained the entire works of Plato, right? So they've obviously been kept because they are useful for discussion, I think. But you've got to be able to have that discussion. You can't shut it down. And I don't think it's for anybody to sort of say that this is the way as well. That's why I encourage more conversation into it, because that opens up new avenues of thought. Hopefully, anyway. Gonna get into the cave now, I think. So, looking at that last 15 minutes.
Okay. At this point, we think, okay, I've got reality. I've got it covered. I see the map of reality. I see it all makes sense. And then Plato ends book 6, and he goes to book 7 and says, I need to give you another image. I thought we already saw all of reality. No, imagine the human condition like this.
It's black
And here's
again.
how he begins
There you go.
this image at the beginning of book 7.
Right, I've put Plato's cave up in the if anybody hasn't ever gone over Plato's cave, we are going to go over this particular allegory quite a lot, because this is going to be pretty important. I've named this thing Plato's cave in profile, mainly so you can see all of the aspects of Plato's cave mentally, I suppose, and have them all opened up to you.
I just asked a quick question, based on all this that we're going through, and I love this and I respect this, but are we all accepting these assumptions that we're physical beings in a physical reality and our thoughts are our own?
Yeah. I am,
Okay.
yeah.
I just want to make sure everybody's coming from the same place.
I don't know that I could be think anything different.
Okay, yeah, based on what we know, yeah, I'm just saying. All right.
Oh, yeah.
Give
Thank
us
you.
your side then, John.
My side is I can't definitely say on that. I believe that we are, yes. Do I believe it? Yes. Can I say for certain? No. If somebody put a gun to my head and asked me for certain that I was actually physically here in a physical reality, and my thoughts were my own, because sometimes I question that all the time, because I always ask those. Sometimes thoughts will come to me, and I say, "Why am I thinking about this? I have no interest in this whatsoever."
What's the
But-
alternative though?
but
Your
I'm
computer
not.
program?
I'm not saying I know that there is one. I'm not saying that this isn't real. I'm just saying I can't say with 100% certainty that it's
but,
true.
but you can determine that these thoughts are inside you, that
Yes.
this is you who is thinking. or even if some thought is coming into you,
It's
let's
coming
say,
to you, but how is it getting there, paper? That's my question.
oh, that's
Oh, that's
another
good.
topic, but
How
still,
deep do you want to get?
still, you know that this is you who is thinking.
Yes, yes. I'm not denying that. Yes.
So it has to be real because
Well, I mean, John brings up. I'll say this, right? We don't want to squash any
Yeah, but the
conversation.
way, just I was going to say, the way Bev answered that, he was questioning my sanity at that point.
Who was?
Yeah. Bev, you were.
When?
Oh, I don't know about that.
When I asked that question, the way you answered, yes. You know, like, why are you even
How do you
asking that question?
how do you know he wasn't having to think about it?
Okay, all right. Okay, I could be mistaken on the
Right?
way I got that. Yeah.
Yeah, but it is. I mean, it is a fascinating question, right? Because it does. I have heard some. It does open up the idea of we don't need to get into it, but simulation. Computer. Who God knows what, right? Literally, God knows what.
by
um, yeah.
by the way, if you are thinking, so who is the one who can falsify that you are thinking? Only you.
Only you. Correct.
But you cannot falsify that you are thinking, because in order to falsify it, you have to think.
Yes.
So I would say that this is circular. You cannot do that. It is
Well,
impossible.
that isn't that the origin of I think therefore I am paper?
Uh, mm, origin is that I doubt, but I think, therefore, I am. That part is true, but the first premise, for me, it is false. But this is the proof that I am. I think. I think, therefore, I am. I would say that this is true
Yeah.
statement. But first part, that I doubt, therefore, I think. This is false.
Yep. Existentialism. I mean, John, there's a whole thing on existentialism. Philosophers have dealt with this. If you get into it, as to whether or not anyone actually exists. I mean,
Yeah, yeah, I've heard those. I've heard those, and
Wouldn't it?
right?
I, like I said, I just don't want to lock myself down to anything I'm not absolutely certain about. I'm certain water doesn't curve. You know, that's what I'm certain of.
Well, it does.
Other than that, I don't
Over a
know too much.
weir, it does. You never seen a weir?
Who?
A weir.
No.
It's like a small step in water to slow down.
Oh, yeah, I know. Okay, I know what you're talking about.
So it curves over that. I think I've
Right.
got a video of it. But I would say to paper, like that I doubt, therefore I think. Would that not be similar to the fact that you're trying to falsify something? And in trying to falsify it, then that induces the thought process. So therefore you could, if the moment you do doubt, you are taking on board a thought process.
Yes, but still, if doubting is part of thinking, it means that this is just thinking is being, but doubting itself, mm, I would say, it's not the proof that I think, because because thinking is proof of existence, but this is syllogism. So I doubt, therefore I think.
And I
I
think,
think,
therefore I am.
therefore I am.
Yeah.
It means the middle term is thinking, but premise is
Doubting.
doubt. So this epitheme
Yeah.
would be I doubt, therefore I am.
Yeah, well, no,
For
the
me-
conclusion that you should come to is that I think, therefore I am, is that Well, he obviously doubted something. Right?
Yes,
Which is
but
fucking ridiculous. It's so stupid. No doubt they got rid of it.
so for me, this syllogism with throwing out this middle term, for me, this is just like proving from ignorance, because doubt is not something that you are gaining in low knowledge. So you
It's a
don't
bad
gain knowledge
philosophy.
about your thinking
Yeah.
by doubting, because I would say if you doubt in something, so you can also doubt that you are thinking. So if you doubt that you are thinking, so you can also doubt that you are that you are. So
That's not too difficult to grasp, huh, baby?
It's so ridiculous that for me is the turning point in philosophy where they lost me. Right? They'd
yeah,
gone so
me
far
too,
up their
me
own
too.
arses at that point that you can forget about it. Like, may as well go back to Plato and Aristotle at that point. I don't know why they didn't. I think they did try to, didn't they? They tried to reverse it. We'll go over that later on in the thing anyway. The modern stuff. This is going to be great for discussion through the different stages of man. Can we go into the cave now?
Have we ever been out of it?
Sure.
Yeah, let's go.
Next, then, I said, make an image of our nature and its education and want of education, likening it to a condition of the following kind. See human beings as though they were in an underground cave-like dwelling, with its entrance a long one, open to the light across the whole width of the cave. They are in it from childhood, with their legs and necks in bonds, so that they are fixed, seen only in front of them, unable, because of the bond, to turn their heads all the way around. Their light is from a fire burning far above and behind them. Between the fire and the prisoners there is a road above, along which see a wall built like the partitions, puppet handlers set in front of the human beings, and over which they show puppets. Now, Glaucon in this image says, that is a strange image. And Socrates' reply is, they're like us. Socrates next gives us the second image, the image of the allegory.
Right. Well, did you miss the beginning bit of that? Because I think when I listened to this the first time, I missed it myself. The image that he's just constructed there is about education, of nature. Literally, and the want of education. So go back in.
And Socrates' reply is,
Says then, next then I said, make an image of our nature in its education and want of education. It's the first line. So what he's doing here, this image that he's making, it's going to make an image in your mind. It's of education and the want of education.
they're like us. Socrates next gives us the second image, the image of the allegory of the cave. Let's imagine for a moment that this is a cave. It looks something like this. Okay. And Socrates says, imagine there were people sitting in the cave, chained to the ground, looking at the wall at the bottom of the cave. These are the prisoners, okay? And then he suggests that there's some path up the cave, and there are more people up here on the next level. And they're holding things, like an apple maybe. And there's a fire behind them. And the fire casts light onto the image. And so the people in the bottom of the cave only see the image cast by the fire onto the wall of the cave. They don't actually see the apple. And then outside the cave, we've got puddles and trees, maybe with real apples on them. And at the very top, the sun. Okay, so you can see pretty quickly maybe that this cave image corresponds to the divided line. Images, things, maybe mathematical objects, and the idea of the good or the forms themselves. It roughly corresponds. Now, Socrates puts this into a drama. And he first says, okay, those prisoners down at the bottom of the cave, they're like us. And that's perplexing. How are we like prisoners? He says, we are bound to see, our natural condition is bound to see images of things. And we might ask us, what are the chains that bind us to seeing things as they are? What are those chains? That's something to reflect on. The chains that prevent us from looking at the truth of things. Vanity, fear, pride, undue attachment. So many things in our nature that attach us to the things that we think we know are true and prevent us from making the turn. So
And now, this is the thing that I have to keep coming back to. We've all come up with ECV. We've been through this process. What we've done isn't from any textbook. No shadow giants were around us. We derived this stuff logically for ourselves. With no shadow giants. Maybe we were guided by I don't know. I was guided by people talking to people, mainly the people around us here now, asking questions, some of them uncomfortable questions, but we came to conclusions. Pretty much this. We recognize the chains. We recognize the paralogisms that were given to us. We try and show people those paralogisms. Not that anybody's ever free of them. Just that there are a certain type of person that can be, is it introspective to look at it themselves? That's where growth occurs. Within this. And this, Plato's cave. Those images that you're given. Even Plato says, that Socrates says, that they're like us. Not they're like other people. They're like us. Nobody's saying we're not part of this. Everybody is in this position for multiple different things. You still have to keep putting yourself in this position just to check that you're not there. I think this is great.
Socrates asks us to imagine what it would be like if someone's chains were broken and they were forced to turn around and make their way up to the next level of the cave. My students often sympathize with this experience because this is what it feels like in the classroom. I'm dragging them away and up into the light. What's that experience like? When you're in a dark room and someone flips on the light, it hurts. It's painful. But the pain is not a bad pain because it's better to be in light than to be in dark. But sometimes our reaction is to want to stay in the dark. But this is more dramatic than that because it's not just sensory, it's also mental. The images on the wall were the whole picture of reality for the prisoner up to this point. And now he sees that that image was not quite accurate or correct, that there's something deeper behind reality than the things he's accustomed to looking at. A point I want to make about this is that Socrates beautifully describes education as a breaking of the chains and a turning of the soul. That's a language you use. All education is turning. It's not putting knowledge into a brain that's not there. It's turning the interior of the soul so it can see correctly. What a beautiful image for education. And this image, by the way, is an image of education, of liberal education. And to add one more thing, our very word, education, is from this image in Plato's Republic, educere, to lead out from the cave. So the prisoner...
There you go. This
That's awesome.
is education. The real education. To make sure people aren't staring at images, imagining that that is reality. To make sure people are aware of the other part of it. I think that.
They can't turn around and see that the people behind them are just walking with sticks creating those images.
Nope, they can't see it.
They can't see it.
Nope.
They won't see it. Particularly, yeah, you have to keep in mind that the people that we are talking about, they are worshipping an image. Literally. They've got all of their faith in the things, that faith that's not within the higher intellect, not within the forms or anything. They've kept all of their faith in the image.
Mm-hmm.
The complete inversion, isn't it?
Yep.
Of everything. You just flip it upside down and then they put their faith in the image. It's at the top. When it really is of the lowest form. And the education in its literal form is to turn people out of that and lead them away. But this is why we have to say there is a time for us to move on. The people that want to come on this journey aren't within the group of people that we've been assigned to be in. Our little dark corner of the internet aren't the people that we're looking for in order to progress ourselves anyway. And I'm like I say, I'm happy with the people that I've got, and these journeys, like this guy says, you need to have these bad things or bad examples for you to be able to find the good, the right, the reasoning to work your way around the problems. But there's obviously somewhere else for us to go to within conversation. This bit is it. Go on, sorry, Piper.
In this example, the important part of that is light, because this light inside of the cave, produced by campfire or whatever, does not give us opportunity to know things properly. So outside of cave there is better light. So he was talking about classroom and switching on the light in the classroom, etc. So I would say that important part of that is the light. And he was at the beginning of the film, he was talking about this light or inner light. So I would refer it to that. this light, this in our mind, that sometimes we just not use our own light, our own reason. We are just receiving and parroting uh, opinions or given knowledge or pseudo knowledge from others. We trust them, but we are not uh, mm, we are not looking at things with our own light of our own mind, but only by given not perfect light, uh, sometimes even for purpose. This light is dim, that we should not see things as they are. So,
with purpose.
Yeah. Yes. I
yeah,
totally agree with that paper, and I think just put yourself there, right? If you put yourself there, imagine you don't see the fire, right, as the light source. You don't know it's there, but you know that if you did know it was there, you would know that flames flicker, they get brighter, they get dimmer. They're going to cause whatever image is cast from them to be distorted. His paper said dim, right? Right. It's not going to be even a decent representation of the thing that's not the real thing to begin with, right? The cutout of an apple, or a vase, or a stick figure person, or whatever you think, right? That's it. That is it. That is the state of it's, and it's become the state of education again. If I can, I've read this before, right? But this is the lost tools of learning in the mind of the maker that we've talked about before. If I can find it really quickly, let's see, was it page 18? I think. May have been early. That's all right. I can read it another time. Um, but essentially, this is what was lost. This education, right? The idea of a liberal arts, because he said that's what this is tied to. That's gone now. It's been gone for decades in the West. There is no more of that unless you go to a specialized school where this kind of thing is taught. Critical thinking is taught. When I first came into this server, Bev, I don't know if you remember, was one of the first things, what are you doing here? I've never seen you here before. And one of the first things I said was, well, I heard about you guys from Nathan Oakley, because that's the truth. And I came in, but Nathan didn't quite do it for me. I'm looking for critical thinking. That my thing is critical thinking. I lament the fact that it's gone. And I think I told a story that my dad, although not an quote educated man, right? Never even completed high school. Came to this country from Italy when he was 17, and lived through World War II in Italy as a very young child, obviously in the early 40s. And my dad, but my dad instilled in me a sense of common sense and critical thought, and I thank him every day for that, because he gave me some pieces of a liberal arts education without even knowing he was doing it. And there's so many people that don't have this. They don't have this for their children and their grandchildren. It's sad. It's sad. And it's going to doom them to live in that cave, chained to the floor, can't move their heads, with some flickering flame in the background. And to me, that's just, again, it's just sad.
I think it's worth noting as well that he's constructed this image because he wants people to see that there are people that he can constrain, that have been watching something that is not reality, right? He's letting you know that those people that are us are the people that have been confined to not see reality. Modern day times, media,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
advertisements,
Mm-hmm.
the false images.
yes, and
Back in the
based
day,
on that,
also.
the sad thing is that based on that false images, they are creating judgment about reality. This is very sad.
Yeah.
Yes, very sad.
That's the whole
So-
point of it, is the fact that even back then, there's an allegory that's been taken that's still active today. It's got even worse. Nobody's learned the lesson, or maybe the lesson is that if you don't educate people about this, then they're not aware of it. And not being aware of it means you're blind to it. You just can't see it. You can have all of these images telling you stories about things, and you're comfortable with the images and the stories without being made aware of this particular thing. I mean, this particular allegory is the basis, I'd say, of the Matrix.
Yeah, that's clear.
Yeah.
That's been talked about many, many times.
And this is only a tiny portion of a greater story. And yet they've made that tiny portion into a film and made that massive, when the message is very clear. But does the message come across within the Matrix? Or does it turn it into a story? Is this a story? Unless there's a discussion about these things, what is it?
If based on what you're saying, you're going to love Howdy Mikowski's explanation of Plato's cave. I'm telling you, I don't want to tell you about it, but when you see it, he's going to be answering questions that you're asking and you're talking about right now. I love it. Love it.
It's all about asking the questions. I might already have the answers. Still got to ask the questions. Carry on.
Is dragged into the next level and sees the next level of people holding these images and casting the shadows on the wall. They are the image makers. Image makers. Who are the image makers? Who are the image makers in our own culture? Think about it. I assume that you've seen commercials before. How do they work? Image makers. They cast images, the nice car, the nice clothing, the nice deodorant product, casting images into our souls to do what? To help us reimagine reality a different way and to then desire those things that are being cast. How about musicians, the songs we listen to, the movies we watch? Think at a deeper level about the very language we use. And then I want you to think about this. How deeply our contact with reality is mediated by the images we've gotten. Our very first experience of an apple that we remember was probably accompanied by the word apple, a word that mediated our whole conception of what an apple is. And when you see an apple, some of you might think immediately of the story of the fall in Genesis. You bring to it all kinds of things that are not immediate. So Plato wants to suggest, or Socrates, I'll say, wants to suggest to us that all of knowledge, in some sense, involves interpreting reality through images. But then the question is, do the image makers actually know enough to make the images? What is the goal? Do we want these prisoners to see reality as it is? Or are we manipulating? Do you see that the whole area of this part of the cave could be a layer of just pure manipulation?
Yes. Particularly in the thing that nobody seems to mention is, who's telling them to do that? Who's lighting the fire? These guys walking around with the shadows to cast them. They're not making the shadow things. There's somebody else doing that. And then who decides to tell them to do that? Who's the one that devises the plans? Who's the one that gives them the images? Who makes the images?
Do you have an
Shadow
answer,
giants.
Bev?
The shadow giants.
Ev, do you have the answer?
Do I have the answer for what?
Question you're just asked.
There is no answer, is there?
Well, I don't know. It could be a theory.
You'll never get to that answer. They've got so clever at hiding whatever they do.
Oh, shit.
You're never going to know. Especially not us. I mean, where are we? We're nowhere near that thing. We could never work our way up high enough to know that. The best you can do is sort yourself out.
You're absolutely right about that, Bev. I agree 100%.
And then the best you can do after that is try and help other people sort themselves out.
Be an honorable man or woman. Absolutely.
Yeah. I know we keep talking about epoche, and I think that's pretty vital to know what you're never going to know. You know, like know what you can't know and be happy not knowing it.
Do you think you have a soul, or do you believe in evolution?
I wouldn't know what the soul is. I wouldn't.
I'm
I've
not
never
asking
contemplated it, so I wouldn't know. But judging by this, if you take Plato's and Aristotle's idea of the soul, then it can be incorporated into your being.
Yeah, so something has to animate this piece of meat, right?
Yes, and this is called soul. And in fact, in Greek term, it is because generally this spirit, which is moving everything, this is this is pneuma in Greek, and of course in Latin spiritus, so spirit in English. But this what souls is giving this piece of meat, as you said, it enables it to move. And this is called, nomen omen, listen carefully, energeia. So listen carefully to these people who are talking about energy nowadays.
Well, I'm so glad you're saying this stuff. God, I can't tell you how just much everything you guys are talking about is going to fit in what you're going to see once you ever, if ever, you should watch that.
Because someday you will hear that machines which have energy, that they are alive because they have energy. Maybe this is my conspiratory theory, but this word is energeia in Greek, energy. So this is the effect of being a living entity. So we have this ability to move by itself. So,
but that's different than spirit, right?
I believe soul and spirit are separate.
Spirit is general term that this is spiritual, not material, but in body. So energeia, it is something that soul is giving to your body, this piece of meat and
soul.
bones.
Yeah, soul.
So it is giving you ability to move by itself.
Yes.
It causes that these bones are
Yes.
moving itself.
Yes.
There is no external anything that would causes you to move. This
Yes.
your soul is giving you that ability.
Yeah. Eventually we'll get John, I totally agree with you again, right? I believe soul and spirit are separate thing. We can get to that. We have that discussion is another
That they're same, but and this,
I'm getting a bit of a lag here, guys. Let me just jump out.
We can hear you just fine.
I don't know. Well, you're back again now. You guys were roboting, both of you were.
Oh no, we weren't roboting for each other.
Uh,
So
uh,
I was hearing everybody fine, and I heard
on,
you fine.
on my side, it was everything all right.
Yeah, yeah.
Everything was good here as well.
That's why I was saying I think it's me. I was stopping you because you were just talking and I couldn't hear what you were saying. But I think we're back now. I don't know whether I need to leave or not.
We can move on.
Yeah, yeah, okay, yeah. Yeah, we was talking now. Okay, let's go.
Of images. But Socrates says, no, there's more. Keep going. We can get outside the cave, and now we're ready for it. It hurts this time because the sun is a lot brighter than the fire. And you can't look at the sun when you get out of the cave. The first thing you have to look at are the things around you, maybe images in puddles is how he describes it. And then you can look at the tree and maybe the apples on the tree. And then when your eyesight has grown strong and powerful enough, you can look at the sun. And then you know the full depth and plenitude of reality, of being. Think about that, cascading all the way down. So what we get here now is what was missing in that image of the divided line: the human dramatic journey of philosophy. Philosophy is the movement from those images to things, to the forms, to the idea of the good. Philosophy is the love of the thing at the top here, the idea of the good itself. And there's a question, however, lots of rich questions here. Like,
so he's got the good as being reality,
Yes.
Mhm.
or
Yes.
or like a truth, a proof. You know, like it, however you want to deal with it, but it is what is, right? That's the good.
Yes, and in Aristotelian philosophy, and not only in Saint Thomas Aquinas also, of course, it is equivocation, because something that exists, it is good by itself. So if exists, it means that it is good. So this is equivocation between existence of thing and being good. So
Yeah,
reality is good.
it's the good, right? It's the
Yes. So
good.
saying yes, and that's why the truth is good, because something that exists, it means that this is true, and it means also that it is good.
Well, what is the derivative of the word? Right, the good. Is it just got an extra O in there?
This is in English. I would, because you are saying that God and good, so
I'm
this
trying
is
to
one
think
extra.
of. It seems like a very strange word for them to place the good. If you know what I mean, like if that's the ultimate, then the good seems. I don't know.
I don't know about. I would say that Saint Thomas Aquinas, of course, he is equivocating, because that he says very often that God is the good. So it is goodness itself. So
And perfect, right? I mean, there's
yes,
an idea of
not only
perfection.
perfect, that God
Yeah.
is perfect. God is perfection itself.
But yeah, but that's
So
him equating good to God. Is that what Plato is saying, or Socrates? Right? Is he equivocating the good just to be an extension of God, the truth,
I would say the highest form, whatever
yes,
you
Yeah.
think that is, right?
highest goodness,
Yeah.
let's
Yeah.
say.
Some people will place God there, other people won't. I suppose. But yeah, that's probably a personal, like a person it's almost funny because it almost goes back right back around to faith, doesn't
Well,
He
it? From
was
that
he was
perspective.
there. He was obviously he knew about gods because he wrote about
Yes.
gods. So for him to
Yes.
put the good, either it seems to the name it's too similar for him to be keeping them as separate if one of them's truth and I
he was talking about beauty itself, that philosopher would seek beauty itself, not only beautiful objects. The same thing is with good. We can say that this is good, this car is good, this person is good, but we can, when we are philosophizing, we can seek for uh, something that is good, the good itself, like with this example with beauty. Uh, so he distincts between beautiful things, so things that have as a property beauty inside, and beauty as an entity itself. So that would be the distinction between things which are good and the good itself, I would say. But I could equivocate it with God, of course. But he's talking about this metaphysical entities, beauty itself and good itself as an entity. As separated substance, not a physical object, because we can say that this good is in an object, but so what it is, this good. So if you separate this good from this uh, object, we have the good itself without object. So he assumes that there is some kind of highest good in our universe as an entity. So he is bringing this into reality, that there is a thing that is good itself or goodness itself.
sorry I was muted. Being positive or desirable in nature, not bad or poor. Having the qualities that are desirable or distinguishing in a particular thing, serving the
Yes,
desired purpose or end suitable.
yes. So this is this description is about property of something. But
That is desirable.
yes, yes, of course. But uh, he's talking about the good. It means this is not only property of something, uh, but it is something itself. Like, for example, white and whiteness. So we can talk about car being white, but we can also talk about whiteness itself, not as a property in given object, but itself. So completely
Yeah.
abstracted. So
That
that would be that with good and goodness, let's say.
yes, that was the whole. Bev, do you remember trying to get our heads around in the trivium the whole idea about in or of?
Yeah,
It's the
yeah.
same thing. Same
Mhm.
thing.
So
Yeah.
that would be good as a substance, not as a let's say accidental. Because we can say that the car is white, it means that this accidental or this predication is that it is white, but we can ontologize that into substance, and we can talk about whiteness itself without matter, let's say. What is whiteness, for example? So that's the same thing would be with good and goodness.
Wow, it's got here. In most contexts, the concept of good denotes the conduct that should be preferred when posed with a choice between possible actions. Good is generally considered to be the opposite of evil and is in the interest in the study of ethics, morality, philosophy, and religion. The specific meaning of and etymology of its term and its associated translations amongst ancient and contemporary language show substantial variation in its inflection and meaning, depending on circumstances of place and history or of philosophical religious context. So they're going to tell you that there's all sorts of different meanings of good throughout the ages. Interesting. Obviously, this will have its own meaning, won't it? This'll be this good. Will have its own. People will have decided what they meant by good in these times.
Yes, but basically it was always linked to reality. So uh, mm, in ancient times, philosophers would not say that things that uh, that don't exist, that they are good. So always it always refers to reality. And being, as you said in this description, it was said that this is in opposition to devil or evil, so or bad, just bad. So, but you cannot have bad without good, because bad itself doesn't exist, because bad is lacking of good, of being good in some regard, maybe. So you have to have this regard in first place to deny it in the second place. So bad is in opposition to good, so you have to have good, then you can contrast it with bad or lacking of, or deprivation of something, that something is lacking. For example, if man is blind, so he is lacking sight sense, so this is bad. But you can compare it to this normal state, which is good when people can see. So if in nature of human being sight sense would be not present, you would not say that being blind is bad, because it is not in nature of human being. But because it is, you can say that this is good because it is as it is. But someone who is blind is lacking some good that he should possess according to his nature. And then you can say that this is bad. So this is, I would say, Aristotelian, but also Saint Thomas Aquinas approach, that bad is just lacking of good, but lacking of something. You have to have first this good to mine it, to abstract from good. Okay.
Yeah, there is a thing in there, in the good. I don't know whether we need to go over it, do we? No, we can go over that in some other time. We need, obviously, mark that down on the list. We need to go over the good. Okay.
Why don't we just free everyone from the chains? Can all of the chains be broken? And then Socrates tells us about the break in the chains. He says, imagine if the philosopher were to go back in to the cave and tell the prisoners, hey, you guys would not believe what I just saw. What do you think the prisoners do? Hey, take us, let's go. Some of them might, but most of them say, you're talking nonsense. Stop undermining our beliefs about these images on the wall. And this is Socrates' account. When the prisoner who'd been released keeps telling them they threatened to kill him. Wow. Threatened to kill him. In other words, the cave is like the city of Athens. The cave is like any city. All political regimes are somewhat cave-like. All of us are prisoners in some sense. All of us see images, and we want to make that journey. How do we make it? If Socrates wants to free us from the chains, and now I'm interpreting this image a little bit for you. How would we break those chains? What does that look like exactly? Physically, we could say we just go down and break them and drag people out. You just gotta drag them out physically and break those chains. There's a word for that, a phrase. It's called the French Revolution. It didn't end well. There's another way.
I don't get that. There's a word for that. The French Revolution.
And that struck me as really odd as well when I heard that. I was doing something at the sink and I had to turn around and I said, did he really say that?
Yeah. It doesn't expand on it or anything.
Yeah.
For me, this is non sequitur because,
Yeah.
as far as I know, this is just.
It's ECV, isn't it?
Mass murder and just no, how to say this? Just mass murder. That was
What if you
the French Revolution.
Phrase. It's called
Let me go
the
back.
them and drag people out. You just gotta drag them out physically and break those chains. There's a word for that, a phrase. It's called the French Revolution.
I always thought
Is he saying those people wouldn't want to leave the cave?
Well, my understanding of the French Revolution was the time where they decided they couldn't let that happen again. That's when one of the big plans was put into action. The houses or whatever of the past weren't aware of this going on, and they weren't communicating well enough. And I think the people overthrew them. But how that is dragging them, releasing their chains.
Yeah, I don't see the
It is
proper
not.
relationship there. Yeah.
Well, unless the people of France became aware, right? And then they had to decide, right, now we need to enact a plan to make sure this never happens again. Unless something like that occurred. So what's the chance the French were quite enlightened? They weren't fooled by this. Who's that got a hot mic?
Kevin.
Kev, are you at the sink?
Yep. Sorry.
Yeah, so I think there's something happened, but I don't get how dragging people from the chains causes this. Personally,
Well, I took it and what he was saying is you have to do this to drag the people from the chains. That's the way I took what he said. How people could listen to the same thing and hear it differently.
That's why we need conversation.
I would say that he made just not very good analogy.
Yeah, but
I
what
agree with that,
analogy
sure.
would you put in that place? I don't. It's a hard one because I think it would cause ECV. I mean, how obviously not everybody's going to come out from the chains, but
That's
what would
the thing.
happen if you
Yeah,
were to
that-
do that?
Wow.
I don't know.
What would I call? I'd call it public school.
Right. Well, let's say put it into the analogy today, right? How many people are there staring at shadows? Completely fooled by shadow giants, shadows on the wall, all of that. And what would they be to make them aware of the shadows? Because that's what they're talking about. This is the analogy that they're making, isn't it?
You need a supernatural event opinion.
Yeah, but what they're saying is people don't want it. You
I hear
can't
you.
drag people out of this thing. There's no putting a superhero cape on to be able to do this. The people aren't ready for it. And what happens, he's trying to say, I think, is if you attempt it, this is what you end up with. Just complete shit show.
I think that's one. Yeah, I think if you try to drag people out of the cave and they don't want to go out of the cave, they will end up killing you with the guillotine.
Killing
That's what
everyone. Like
like.
it just
Right.
goes
That's what
mad.
I
It's
think.
utter madness, isn't it? Like you
Which
break
we've
people's
seen.
minds.
Yeah.
But
You're
in
trying to
French,
free the people and they're you for it.
but in revolution,
Yes.
that was that way that these people who were supposed to them, if someone was not willing to be led out of this cave, he was just killed because the liberté, fraternité, and what the third was liberté, fraternité. What was the third word? Can you remember? Just uh, cannot recollect.
I'm going to have to just leave for a minute because it's roboting again.
Equality, something equality was ou the mort, ou so or death.
Or death. Yeah. Liberty, brother. What is it? Liberty, brotherhood,
Uh,
equality, or death.
yes.
Yeah,
So
something like that.
so if you wasn't, if you were willing to leave that cave, you were just killed. Simple.
But I mean, who did they go after? Was it the people that were casting the shadows? Or did they end up just
No.
killing the people in the cave?
Yeah, I think the people casting the shadows were just as much puppets. They just weren't chained down, though. They were doing the bidding that they were asked
Well,
to do.
yeah, I think you're right, John. I think if you want to equate it to the French Revolution, the cave, it's like they the prisoners somehow, or maybe it wasn't even the prisoners. Maybe it was that second level tier of people there holding the items. They just killed the other, another set of people came in and killed those people, and they took their spot. It's really what happened. The king was overthrown, and then in came another despot under the guise of revolution. So I fail to see the analogy. Maybe it was just a bad analogy on his
And
part.
are the people that are in the change striving to become the people at the next level? Is that how they improve their position within the cave?
Remember, they don't even know they
They don't
exist.
even know they're there. That's right.
Yeah, they're just the lambs. They're just the sheeple. And without education, right? Without the ability to have these kinds of conversation, you remain the sheeple. Without critical thought, education, critical thought, logic, you remain the sheeple. Is it any wonder we've had the experience we've had in the last 3 years? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't have any idea.
Yeah, I'm just trying to work out the French Revolution. You know, he's still got me with that. Like just one little comment. It's like what? He obviously knows something else about the French Revolution that we don't.
Either
Well,
that or he's trying to throw you off.
it's safe to say that both of these instructors or professors, whatever title they want, I would imagine they don't agree on everything either, as far as philosophy is concerned. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
And so, yeah.
So, Bev, this is Rocky. Do you hear me?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. I'm French. Je parle français. I've been to. Has anybody in the Discord been to France?
Yeah.
Is it?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So have you been to Versailles?
I wouldn't know.
Yes.
Okay, I have. I went. I had a tour. We went to the grounds. We actually found out how the water fountains work and everything. So I had a really good tour. One of the big keys for the revolution is that people turned on the king, and especially Marie Antoinette. She said everybody was starving, and she told them, "Let them eat cake." And
Kevin.
Yeah, I've got
I
that.
just
Kev.
recall the
Hot
I
mic,
just recall the
Kev.
basic.
Can't hear.
Sorry.
Okay, the last in the famous word of Marie Antoinette, "Let them eat cake," because the population was starving, and they were living over the top. Even the king would have people pay, and was in Versailles. People would watch the king get dressed, walk him around. They paid to do that because like, whoa, look at me, I'm paying whatever money it was to see the king, and he was noble. He was above all, almost. I'm not going to say God, but he was up there. But when the population had enough of the BS that they were doing and living above and beyond their means, and the population starving, well, revolution, it's the people turning on the king. We're looking, basically, if you look in history, every monarchy learns from the other monarchy that fell.
So have they been the chains ripped off them, and they turned on the people that they thought?
It's the population that turned on the king and on the monarchy, and it's tried to.
So that's the
establish
rulers
government.
then. They're the people that were controlling the shadows, right?
Yes. Now you said like you said in the previous, who is doing this? Now I said to you before, I pretend I'm in the cave and I'm watching those shadows. And there's a person to my right, a person to my left. And we all go through the first stage of our cave life, high school. Then we move on. At one point, I will go to community college. I'll be a cook. But the guy on the right, he went to university. He became an engineer. And the guy on the left, well, he joined the military and he became a navigating officer. Everybody learned the same basic of a triangle, 180 degrees. We all learned in high school. So, but the guy on the, I go to become a cook. Will I use that triangle? The triangle, maybe, but not really. But the guy who's an engineer, he's going to be using it all the time. But what's the first rule? And we even talk about land survey. Do they take the curvature into the perspective of measuring? Never. So the universities know not to bring this. So they exclude it from the subject, and then you become an engineer and you will build bridges, towers, or whatever. But you never use that magic formula. Same thing goes for if you become in the military. You become an artillery officer. You'll learn to use a triangle to shoot 5, 6 miles out. But you never use the Earth curvature calculator. Why? No. Follow the rules we tell you. And then you belong to a club. As an officer club or an engineer club. Would you turn on them? Would you be one of the few that says, hey, I don't want to play this game?
But where's the chains? This is the analogy to the cave.
Yes. Oh, where does the change come?
No, who's the ones that are casting the shadows?
Who's casting the shadows?
Yeah, and who's the ones that are watching the shadows? Because there's more than two people involved in this.
I'll
Isn't
come
there?
back to an analogy of today's world. I've been to, again, I lived in Europe for 3 years. I've been to Poland. I went to Auschwitz, Birkenau.
Is
Who is
that
coming?
his
Yeah,
connection? Sorry,
no,
No,
Rocky.
I think that you are too far from your
Yeah,
microphone because
too
you're
far?
right on the limit of the cutting out of your mic. It's in and out.
Oh,
yeah,
okay. Is this better or worse?
Yeah, that
yes,
sounds
yes.
better. Thank you very
Okay.
Better
much.
now, yeah.
So
Better
okay.
now.
So here's the thing about I went to Birkenau and Auschwitz. I visited those. Those are part of history, and I wanted to visit it. If you understand how the German, they had the Jews, and I should say the Jews, they had Jewish prisoners protecting, or not protecting, guarding the Jews. They had capos. So it's the same thing as you took a Jew, or and I'm not if I'm Catholic or whatever. I'm just saying they took a person, a Jew, and now they made him the boss of the prisoner, although he was a prisoner. So it's
Supposedly the
the same
same thing
thing.
happened on the
It's the
plantation.
same thing. Well, yes,
Took
and
one
it's
of the
the same thing.
slaves and made him a houseboy, and he was, yep.
Yeah, and it's the same thing at university. If you pass, you get that diploma. You are a higher learning. You're better than me who went to the cook school. You're better than a guy who's a laborer who's actually doing roofing, or a guy who starts his own construction business. You're above. So you start at a certain salary, and they don't want to lose that. But who do you hire? The same people who you end up drinking Kool-Aid and you end up making the Kool-Aid. But who's giving you the crystals to make the Kool-Aid? The university. They need to know. They know. But again, it's a small group of people that distribute the information. Universities are suffering right now because there's a lot of people getting out of universities with $80,000 in debt. Cannot do nothing. You work at Starbucks, giving coffee. And on the same notion, somebody goes to school for 2 years to be an auto mechanic. Hey, you're starting at 75,000. So you tell me which side of it, which school would you rather send your kids for the future?
Yeah, but I think that's getting a little bit.
Oh no, but I understand. I'm not cutting college or university. But when you say who's perpetuating this lie, the people who learned the lie never understand that they're now saying the lie. There's only a few. Like, okay, so
I
imagine
don't
we're a
know.
few.
I don't know whether I asked who's perpetuating the lie. I was asking what the
Well, they're
relevance
this.
was to the French Revolution, really, and
Oh well, the revolution.
who's
It's people.
casting the shadows. Who are the shadow casters, and who are the people that are giving them the things to cast the shadows?
In
Okay.
relation to the French
Yeah,
Revolution, I think is the point,
yeah.
because that was the
Yeah.
Okay,
analogy.
it was the king. They flipped the king. So in the storyline, the people flipped the king because of the king's weight of what he was doing. Now, who was a puppet shadows back then? Well, the king. But who replaced the king? Who replaced the king? Remember that. There has to be a government, and there has to be people that will be in charge. Just like we talked the other night, who established on a navigational term that 1 degree is equal to 60 nautical miles. Who was it? Go back and you'll read. You'll read who it is. It's up and you're talking into the kings and queens and around that time. They kind of knew and they just hold that as a secret. I mean, it's I look at everything as
Well,
reverse
I don't
mathematics.
see. I don't think that's a secret. I think everybody knows that.
No, no, no.
What that they changed the nautical
They
mile because they couldn't
Oh yeah, no,
measure
no,
the
no, nautical
land.
mile, yes. But understanding again, it's geometry.
Yeah.
And people are not learning the true geometry because nobody understands how a Saxon works. You almost got to be a specialist, and you got to learn their way.
No, I
It's like an
think
engine.
the geometry is more basic than that.
Oh no,
It's the
it's not even.
fundamentals of geometry that you need to be able to understand.
And they don't.
For that. I mean, who's they?
The people using, they're using a different geometry. When you navigate,
You can't use a different geometry. There's no such thing. It doesn't
Okay,
exist.
so Ben, I'll give you this example. You told me the other day that 1 degree
But
is 60 nautical
just in a
miles.
minute, Rocky.
Okay,
Like
sure.
on this at the minute, we're trying to finish a course
Oh,
on
yes, yes, yes. Okay,
this
yeah, yeah.
thing.
No,
I
that,
don't.
we're getting on something else.
Yeah,
Okay,
this is
Back to me,
this
the
is
French
being
Revolution.
recorded for this reason. We're not. I don't want to be getting
Okay,
into
okay.
other
So
things at the minute.
on the same thing as the French Revolution. If you want to cut that out, cut it out. On the French Revolution, I was in France. I was in many places, and you hear about the revolution. It was the people who turned on the king.
Yeah,
Who was who
that's
made the
what I heard as well. But
And yes, and that's what he's saying. And he's saying in there that the revolution, why did the king topple down? It wasn't another king fighting him.
yeah, but
It was his
what he's
own.
saying is the act of the fact of ripping the chains off the people means that the rulers end it because they're the ones that have been leading the
But
charge to cast the shadows. That's not bad.
no,
But the way he said, we all know
Mhm.
how that ends, made it sound like it was bad.
who
That's
was
the
it
bit
bad
that's
for?
confusing me.
No, but who was it bad for? The French Revolution.
But how about from this perspective, Bed, that the ones casting the shadows uh, instructed the people to overthrow this king so they could take over power?
Exactly. There's more manipulation involved in the French Revolution than I think anybody can even imagine there might be.
Sure, sure.
It
Well, yes,
sounds
I
to me,
understand.
like I said, it sounds to me like this guy knows more about the French Revolution and the reasons for it because he's linked it to the ripping of the chains of the Plato's cave, which I don't know. It
Okay,
requires
but
an extra part of thought, I think, for you to link them two together.
but again, there was a void. The people took out a king. Who came in the void? That's what you got to look at.
That's
For
the whole
one,
purpose.
yeah, but who came in the void? It wasn't the. How should I say this? It wasn't the people who took over.
Is it
Someone filled the void.
Cardinal Richelieu?
No, Cardinal Richelieu, it was 1 century before. So no, they established
I'm confused at this damn
they
conversation. What the
established
hell's
atheistic republic. So
Yeah, I think that was the end of it. They decided at that point this can never happen again. We need to make people stupid.
Oh yes.
That's a great point, Bev.
Mm-hmm. Okay, can we carry on now?
please,
Only the
please,
last
Beth,
the
please.
last 3 minutes.
It didn't end well. There's another way. What if you go up to the level of the image makers? What if you can cast images which allow the prisoners to slowly turn on their own, to be released from their own bonds through those images so that they can turn and make that journey themselves? Maybe this is a clue as to why Plato writes dramatic dialogues. What is Plato's Republic but an image? And what does he give us in that book but images that are meant to turn our souls? As I tell my students, maybe we can't ultimately get past the images. And in fact, Socrates tells us, Glaucon gets so excited in this image. He says, take me out there, take me every step of the way, show me the idea of the good. Don't shut up until we see the idea of the good. And Socrates says, I'm sorry, I can't take you there. In fact, I've never been there. I don't know what it's like, but I know it exists. That's philosophy. You've got to make the journey yourself. But what Socrates shows us is that if the cave is a city in which opinion or images are part of that city, not all caves are created equal. Not all cities are created equal. Some images are more powerful at turning our souls towards reality. Some images positively prohibit us from seeing reality. They have
Some images positively prohibit us of seeing reality.
Yes, because
Again,
they are
anyone
replacing.
anyone
They-
name an image that is all powerful that stops people from being able to see reality?
9/11.
I'd
is
say
globe.
globe. Literally, the moment you see that thing, people just automatically switch off. The very image, the very sight of it, the very mental picture of it within a conversation, the moment somebody mentions anything to do with it, even the antonym, the opposite of it, the moment
But
any of these images comes in, that's it. Boom, you've got no chance. That's why we don't want to talk about it. It stops conversation. It stops free thought. Purposely.
especially the images that have trauma associated with it. Those stay with people.
The images in childhood, they get locked in.
Yeah,
You can't get
sure.
rid of them.
Yep, absolutely, Beth.
Yeah, and they become beloved, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
globes,
The
right? Children
paracosm,
have them.
paracosm is made at that point. Then anything
Yep,
associated with that paracosm, that inhibits your ability to think
correct.
clearly.
That's right. Children have the globes. They have the rocket ships on their sheets. They have the stars posted on their
The
ceilings. They have
cartoons, the
they have yeah,
stories,
absolutely.
the
It gets
movies.
I had the
it be
stars posted on my son's ceilings, Kevin.
yeah, there you go. I did as well. I did to my everlasting shame. But yeah, that's what it creates that thing. There's another point that I wanted to make, and again, I'm just coming at this from which is what I do, right? I will give both potential sides of a thought, right? So this guy, I think it's pretty safe to say, looks at Plato's writings in a positive light, right? He looks at this and says, wouldn't you rather be, if you were trying to turn people to reality, wouldn't you rather be the people that are casting the images, some that would lead those people to reality and a way out, right? And he equated that concept with Plato's writings. And I would say, right, they're taking the other aspect of it is, could Plato's writings be the next set of overseers, that where you think you might be, right, leading someone to reality, but you're actually leading them deeper into the cave or adding more chains to them. That's that's another possibility, in my opinion, with Plato. I'm not saying I subscribe to it. I'm saying it's another possibility. It's like the double-edged sword, both sides of a sword.
I wouldn't call it a chain. I would say another maze there, Kevin.
Fair enough,
The
Reg.
chain the chain you can see, the maze, you gotta figure out how to get through it.
Yeah, last bit.
Obstruct our ability to see. We're back again at this deep relationship between the imagination of poetry and philosophy. So, what have we gotten here? Just briefly, in these two images, we've gotten a picture of reality as being stratified, of thinking about how there are depths of richness in reality, and philosophy involves going deeper and deeper and deeper into those depths of reality. Secondly, we've seen that process involves a kind of education. It involves a turning of the soul, that there are obstacles in us, that we don't naturally appear in the world knowing those depths. We have to turn our souls and make the journey through the cave to the idea of the good. In all the rest of Book 7, Socrates gives us the very first account of a liberal education, the quadrivium. He goes through arithmetic, geometry, astronomy, and music, takes us all the way through those steps that people in classical education know about. This is the first place it happens. And then he brings us to dialectic. The end point of that liberal education is when you're asking questions about the first principles of reality. So Those are two images to get you going, and you should have plenty to think about and talk about. Next lecture, we start with our other I, Aristotle.
He did that at 33. He finished it at 33, and he did the eye thing right over.
Yes, this covering the eye. So
It was weird that, but he did say at the beginning that the Aristotle and Plato were the two eyes that he was going to start with.
Yeah, but it was still weird, but
it was. I would say it was weird, not because he did that, but I am completely sure that when he did that, he was planning to do that. He knew what
Yeah.
it means and how it would be perceived by the audience. So don't
Did
know.
you say he did it for his masters or he did it for us?
Have no idea, but
Either way, right?
Yeah.
Double-edged sword.
There you go.
Flip a coin. Right?
but I wouldn't believe that he just made that gesture as an accident.
Innocently, yeah.
Yes. So, no, sorry.
Ugh. Well, that was good. I think we did well again. Thank you, everyone, for being here and being part of it. Has anybody got anything they'd like to say to go over that as a thing? I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put these two out to show people what we're actually doing back here, and from then on it'll all go as members only sort of stuff. This is where we are going to be going. This is what the sort of stuff we're going to be doing, because I think we can relate Plato's Cave to modern day a lot.
Before you end it, can you explain stuff to me? Can you just you don't have to go back, but when you had the line segment up, I believe it was the association with numbers that had universals and souls associated with that. I could maybe associate universals with it. Was it?
I think that was on
numbers?
another one that I was just picking out because it said something different on the...
Oh, okay, all right. Because I didn't understand that everything else seemed to fit except that one segment there with the universals and souls that I just didn't associate with numbers. I believe it was.
Well, I think
Yeah.
if you go over it, I don't think Socrates actually laid it out as much as it is. Everything, all of the additions are made by individual people when they're trying to explain what Socrates was trying to explain. And really what he's trying to explain is something, he's trying to put reality on a line. It's not really that easy to explain it, and when you start getting into the minutiae of it all, and it's going to start crumbling because you literally can't express reality in a straight line. But I mean, everything seemed pretty good to me. It's like when Paper said the other day he was gonna take Aristotle's definition of truth, was it? Or it's good enough, but it's down to you. And sometimes these things don't have words to be able to go with them for you to be able to express what it is that you're talking about. And this is one of those situations, isn't it?
But on that line, these things like soul, numbers, and universals, they have common thing that they are not material, so they are intellectual. So that's why they were in this
Okay,
intellectual part of the line.
I can grasp that.
Because number, for example, is intellectual entity. There is no representation of number one in reality. We can say that thing is one, and these things are two, like hands. We have pair of hands, so we have two hands, but it doesn't say anything about number two itself.
Right.
So this is because you cannot. It's a purely intellectual entity, number itself. And
Okay.
so also, so he and universal. So, for example, maybe this is not very good example, but like society or state or even family, that it is not physical entity. So this is it belongs rather to intellectual part of our life, like social things, like family or society or state. So yes.
Cool. Thanks.
Okay, anyone else got like I say, I think we'll do this again next week. Maybe Tuesday, Wednesday. Maybe go
Let me
over
just
an
say,
episode each.
this has been phenomenal. Hearing all the different perspectives,
Yeah.
Yeah, I
did.
especially
great.
I especially like that 90 minutes when Kevin was working. That was pretty cool.
It was quieter. I will grant you that, John. It was quieter.
Just kidding, buddy.
Yeah. I will say, if anybody's listening out there, still bothering listening to this, sat through what 3 hours 50. You still come in if anybody's got any questions about anything that we've done. Maybe something that you think we've missed within this. I mean, it is only brief. It is an introduction. Obviously, there's depth to all of the things. It's not worth going over something that we haven't actually gone over here. But if there is anything that we have gone over that anybody thinks that they can add to, then
especially with an alternative point of view.
Yeah.
It's something we discussed. Yeah, that we can have a discussion about. Oh, sure. Anything would help for sure. For sure. Why do I keep saying that?
Yeah, that's where we're going from here on in. We are expanding into this. Call it street philosophy. We've been led to the journey that we've been on. Like I was saying, we did first principles of geometry. That led us to logic, to find logic at the first principles of geometry, and then Raven came. Logos gave us Raven, thank you. That gave us the first principles of logic, brought us back all the way to the trivium. What we're talking about now is the metaphysics, first principles of reality. I don't really think there's anywhere else to go from that. So this is where we are. We're at first principles of logic, first principles of geometry, and first principles of reality now. All discussionable. You can discuss all of them. We can go over geometry and we can go over the proofs. We can formulate the arguments within logic and the trivium using the grammar and the rhetoric, and obviously the dialectic. Dialectic is the conversation between people. That's where we are. That's where we've always been. But we are going to be able to specialize within that particular bit. And obviously, we've found out that there are a group of people, mixologists, that don't want any part of it. So there's no reason for us to keep capitulating to their requests, ridiculous requests that they're not going to be able to ever come and engage in any of this conversation. So we're going to have to leave them behind. Sorry. But if anybody does want to come in, anybody like that wants to come in and engage with it, we know you can't. But please come and try. We're not trying to keep anybody out specifically. We're just trying to progress ourselves, I'm guessing. And don't think anybody, if you don't think you're not part of this or you can't be part of this, even John.
Because I would say because this is part of the education is the real context of the cave. I would say that we're making our way out of the cave, and if others want to join us,
Yeah,
all more the merrier.
willing
If not,
to educate each other and to be educated. As long as you're willing to come in, be part of this, then that's all we ask, innit? Kevin, lead the way.
exactly
Okay.
right.
I am off to bed.
Okay, thank you very much,
With
Right,
Paper.
Paper, thank you.
I am going to
Thank
be
you very
closing
much.
this
Good
off.
night.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Hi, Paper.
I guess there's no need for us to end it. Is there? No need for us to do Buster. So join us again. We are going to be doing this sort of thing. I'll be labeling these 1 and 2. We'll do a series of it. We'll go through the entire course and walk through.
Are you still recording right now?
I am, yes.
Okay.
Just finishing off. Okay. See you next week.